All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome in.
Hello, hello. Are we live right now?
I think
Is
we're
it live?
live.
All right, we're
Takes a
live.
second to buffer. There we go.
Yeah, there we
Yay.
are. Buffering. Nothing worse than a buffer.
Nothing worse than a buffer. Yep, that's what
I
I
know,
always
is that
say.
true? All right.
Well, nice to meet you guys. If you don't know us yet, my name is Bailey, and this is.
Henry.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
We are some of the instructors as well as tutors, class instructors, course instructors here at Seven Sage, and you might have
Podcasters on
also seen
occasion.
us on the podcast. Yep, exactly. On occasion, only
Yeah.
only sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and today I'm excited. We've got a fun little LR in Action live stream for you guys. This is very similar to one of the classes that we run weekly at Seven Sage in the live class subscription. If you guys want to join and come back for more, we have this class every Wednesday, 4:30 to 6 ET. It's called LR in Action, where we go through and we show you exactly how we would solve these questions in action, logical reasoning. And how we do this class is that we haven't prepared for these questions before. We haven't looked at them in a while. If we have seen them before, we try to keep it pretty clean. We're just going to go through and first time seeing it, talk you guys through exactly what our thought process would be to get to the right answer in time conditions. Of course, we're going to be explaining our thoughts as we go. So, cut us some slack if it's not like actually in the minute exactly that you might be wanting to spend on this question. Very normal because like talking yourself out loud or talking through your thoughts out loud is going to be just taking a little bit longer than thinking it through in your head. But we'll try to do this as quick as possible. If you guys have any questions, you can send them in the chat and we will answer them to the best of our ability. I think that's everything I was going to say. Anything to add?
Yeah, there's a bit of a delay on the chat, and so you get your question in. Might be a couple seconds before we answer it. We're trying to answer our questions at the end of when the other person ends up solving the problem. And so apologies for that. I don't know. Maybe or not apologies. I don't know. You guys can wait
No
15 seconds.
apologies.
Never apologize. That is true.
Never apologize except for maybe some situations. Harm? Would you apologize for harm?
Can we make that assumption? I don't know. Is
Now
this
we're getting
are
too
these
all
jokes
satty on you
working?
guys.
Probably not.
No,
I
we
think
don't
we should
know.
just get right down to it. So if I think our producer could pull it up, producer Eric, as I like to call him now. And we'll get started here. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Bailey, you want to take us away here?
Perfect. Oh, and by the way, ideally, you guys had done this section beforehand. If you haven't done this section yet, that's okay. You should be able to still follow along. But if you want to do this section on your own and then watch this recording afterwards, you could totally do so as well. It'll just be on our main YouTube page. And we're going to just go over the questions like 11 through 25 for this section. It's PT 141, section 2, if you would like to pull it up on your own. I think that's everything I was going to say. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, let's roll.
Let me make sure that okay, perfect. So, which of the following most accurately expresses the main conclusion of the municipal legislator's argument? I'm just trying to figure out what are they trying to prove to me? What receives support from the rest of the stimulus? If it seems like a conclusion, I'm going to have to double check that I can point to another piece of evidence for it. Like it receives support from something from the stimulus, and we'll also pit any potential sub-conclusions against each other so that we can figure out which one is actually the main conclusion. The main conclusion just receives support. It does not lend support. It does not make anything else more likely to be true. So, legislator says the mayor proposes that the city accept a lighting company's gift of several high-tech streetlights. Okay, so context, background, other people, mayor's proposing this thing. Let's see what the author has to say about it. Surely there would be no problem in accepting these, despite some people's fear that the company wants to influence the city's decision regarding park lighting contracts. Okay, cool. So, like, already I'm seeing a little bit of author's positiony language. Surely there would be no problem. I mean, this might be our main conclusion as far as we can tell right now. It's like, hey, other person proposes this. Here's our stance on it. There would be no problem. Let's just make sure that we have reason to believe that there would be no problem. Why would there be no problem in accepting this? Well, the only ulterior motive I can find is the company's desire to have its products seen by mayors who will visit the city for an upcoming convention. Okay, so like ulterior motive, maybe the company is just trying to get its products exposure. In any case, though, favoritism in city contracts is prevented by our competitive bidding procedure. So it's like, hey, people might not be loving this for this one reason, but favoritism, we've already taken care of that. Like, no worries about that. There really should be no problem. There would be no problem in accepting these. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, I don't even see another thing that's my potential main conclusion. This definitely receives support from the stimulus. Why did I put a question mark? Let's just go hunting for this in these answer choices. A, some people fear that the company wants to influence the city's decision. Wait, I don't even have any reason to believe that some people fear it. I do think that we mentioned it, but we don't have any reason to believe that that's the case. Can't be my main. Mayor's proposal to accept the gift of streetlights should not be considered problematic. Yep, that's a good rephrase of what I'm thinking is the main conclusion. We'll put a pin in it. See, it's not appropriate that any company should have the unique opportunity. When did we even say this? To display its products to mayors attending the upcoming convention. No, I don't even think that's stated in the argument. Can't be a contender. D, city's competitive bidding procedure prevents favoritism in the dispensing of city contracts. So we mentioned this, but that was just a premise that was supposed to give me reason to believe that this should not be problematic. And then E, the lighting company's desire to display its products to visiting mayors is the real motivation behind the suggested gift. I don't even think we went as far as saying that it's the real motivation. We said it's the only ulterior motive that we can find. So not quite stated. Plus, even if it is, just a premise. Going with B, locking it in. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, nothing to what can I say? What can I say? Beautifully executed. For beautiful
Perfect.
Bailey, right?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Yay.
we were talking about
we were trying to make sure that we could say this beforehand. I paid him to say that.
yeah. We're talking about adjectives to put before another your name. I don't know. Apparently this is a thing that people is this like a drama camp thing that people do?
It's
Like
maybe it's like as your kids just learning each other's names growing up. I don't know.
yeah.
Drama camp is where we all got our start for sure.
Yeah. Is drama camp is that a thing? Did I just make that up? Did I invent that? I feel like band camp was a
Theater
thing.
camp, I
Okay,
feel like.
theater camp.
That's gonna be
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah. I feel like I was
Okay,
more of like a
cool.
zip zap zop person. Do you remember that?
What does that even
You,
mean?
you don't remember zip? Never mind. For those of you who know
What
what
is
zip zap
that?
zop is, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, cool. It seems like we don't have any questions, maybe because the
Yeah.
explanation was so good. So I guess we could keep on charging ahead here
Let's
and
keep going.
tackle this next one. Okay, cool. So this question here so it says the argument's conclusion can be properly inferred if which one of the following is assumed looks like a sufficient assumption question. So our goal is to guarantee the truth of the conclusion. All right, we're given an argument. The argument is incomplete. And so I'm looking for some type of rule or premise I can add into the argument that's going to make this argument good. So let's take a look at this. The chairperson should not have released the election commission's report to the public. Okay. For the chairperson did not consult any other members of the commission about releasing the report before it having been released. So right now, when I look at this, I really just have one conclusion and one premise. The conclusion here is that they shouldn't have released the report. And the reason why is because there was no consulting. Why am I doing that? Maybe I should do premise because there's no consulting. And so when I look at this basic idea is to find a rule that says something like this, right? If the premise is the case, then the conclusion is the case. And so what I would predict right here is that this would say something like, hey, if you did not consult, then you should not release, or something to that effect. So let's take a look for an answer that fits that mold. Now, I'm not totally committed to that prephase. It's going to do something like that, but the exact wording of the answer choice might be different. So let's take a look. A, it would have been permissible for the chairperson to release the commission's report to the public only if most of the other members of the commission had first given their consent. This looks actually pretty good for me. It's not something that I would expect, but the way this is going is if you are going to release the report, then it must be the case that you consent or the people consent. Now, the problem is that no one was consulted. And so if you aren't consulted, then you cannot consent. That's the contrapositive. And if you don't consent, you can't release the report. And so something like A honestly looks pretty good to me. This is a sufficient assumption question. I probably would be pretty comfortable just circling this and moving from here. But I guess I'll take a look at the rest of these answer choices. B says all the members of the commission had signed the report prior to its release. This doesn't really do anything. It doesn't take me to the conclusion I want to get to, which is that you should not release the report. So I'd eliminate something like B. I mean, if anything, too, just like on service glance, if they had all signed the report prior to its release, I guess that would say it's like maybe you're allowed to, but no. So C that says the chairperson would not have been justified, would not have been justified in releasing the commission's report if any of the members of the commission had serious reservations about the report's content. So the outcome of this rule is not so bad, saying you would not have been justified in releasing the commission's report. The real problem I have with C is the trigger. Right? This is if any of the members of the commission had serious reservations about the report's content. The problem is like I just don't know what the members thought about this report. I mean, did they have reservations about its content? Did it not? Because of that, I'd eliminate something like C because the rule just doesn't trigger based on these premises. Let's take a look at D. The chairperson would have been justified in releasing the report only if, so this is a requirement of being justified to release the report. This doesn't look so bad so far. If each of the commission members would have agreed to its being released had they been consulted. The problem I see with this here is what would they have agreed to, right? We don't know the mind state of any of these members. And so I can't really say that they would have or wouldn't have agreed to the release because we just don't know. So we'd eliminate something like D. I feel like D would be it could be a pretty attractive answer. The question you just have to ask yourself is, do I know if these people would or would not have agreed to the release of the report? Let's take a look at E. Some of the members of the commission would have preferred that the report not be released to the public. And so sure, maybe some of the people would have preferred that it wasn't released to the public, but this is not a rule that tells you when I should or shouldn't release the report. And so that's why I'd eliminate something like E. Even if E is true, I mean, I don't know. It's like, sure, that maybe they wouldn't have preferred, but it could still have been okay. And so it looks like A, which we liked up front, is the only answer that really gets the job done here. A little bit odd though, right? Because I guess you kind of have to know, like, on the definition of consent, there needs to be a consult here. We predicted that it would say if no consultation, then don't release. This says if no consent, then don't release. But that's okay. And yeah, that's all we have for this. I mean, guessing this is right.
Nice work. Yeah, be more confident. Say it is right instead that you're guessing. Come
Yeah,
on,
well, I mean,
you know it's right.
to be fair, I've it's been a while since I've seen this question, but I do know it's right. But that's what I
Okay,
would.
perfect.
That's I'm trying to embody the
exactly
mind
what you do in
state
real
of
time.
someone who had just seen this, right? Where it's like you look at this, it's a little bit awkward because you see consent versus consult, but it ends up being okay. All right,
Perfect.
maybe we have questions
Nice.
here.
Okay. By the way, yeah, I haven't seen any questions. Like we said before, there's a little bit of a lag with the questions. So just send your questions in the chat as soon as you have them. Otherwise, we'll probably kind of move past it. And we can always go back to a really hard question if we realize that there was questions that left unanswered. But I don't see any questions right now. Send them if you have them. And I think for the sake of time, we'll just keep moving. But again, if you guys have questions, we can always go right back. Okay, sweet. This is back to me. So a flaw in the reformer's argument, is that it? Okay, so now I'm just trying to describe the gap or hole. It's kind of similar to the question that Henry just did, except for like he was trying to figure out what's wrong with the reasoning and then fix the thing that's wrong with the reasoning. We're just going to point out what's wrong with the reasoning. We're going to find an answer choice that describes why the conclusion does not necessarily follow given these premises. So let's find the conclusion, see what this gap or hole in the reasoning is, and then we'll go looking for something like that in those answer choices, just double checking that it passes 2 tests. Is this entirely true about the argument? And then just objectively, is this a flaw? Usually you get rid of them because they're not true about the argument. Sometimes they throw a rogue answer choice in there that's just not a flaw. Like it doesn't cite the sources of the figures it uses. You don't have to do that on the LSAT. All right, let's go. Reformer says a survey of police departments keeps track of the national crime rate. Got it. Context, background information, which is the annual number of crimes per 100,000 people. Cool. So we even have a definition for crime rate. No confusion there. The survey shows no significant reduction in the crime rate in the past 20 years. Okay, so it's stayed about the same over the last 20 years, but the percentage of the population in prison has increased substantially. Huh, interesting. So, like, crime rate has stayed the same, but more and more people are going to prison. That seems weird. I wonder where they're going to go with this. And, public expenditure on prisons has grown at an alarming rate. Okay. So people are paying a lot more money for prison. More people are showing up in prison, but the crime rate is about the same. That's wild. I don't know. So I think where they'll probably go with this is saying something like, so what's the point of sending people to prison? However, we're going to be cautious about that. Let's see what they do. This demonstrates, that putting more people in prison cannot help to reduce crime. But no, we don't know this for sure. I mean, maybe putting more people in prison cannot help to reduce crime. But for all I know, it's just the opposite. Like this really is working. That's why the crime rate has stayed the same. No significant reduction in the crime rate. What if we didn't put people in prison? What if they didn't have any punishment for the things that they're doing wrong? Well, potentially that crime rate would be a lot higher. So it's really a bad way to get to this conclusion. I'm looking for something that kind of points out that gap in the reasoning. Infers without justification. Is this true? That it infers without having reason to believe this, that because the national crime rate has increased, wait, We just said that the national crime rate has no significant reduction. I don't even know that it has increased. So, already not descriptively accurate. The number of crimes reported by each police department has increased. What? No, we just never did this. We never talked about an increase in number of crimes, crime rate. We just said that there was no significant reduction. Goodbye, A. B ignores the possibility. So, like, would this possibility weaken if we were to find it out? That's how you want to approach ignores the possibility answer choices. Ignores the possibility that crime rate would have been significantly increased or would have significantly increased. Yes, there we go. If it had not been for the greater rate of imprisonment. Exactly. Because I'm like, hey, you know what? It could be that prison has no effect, but it also could be that prison's working. And that's exactly why we have seen no significant reduction. It stayed the same. Otherwise, it would have been a lot higher. B is perfect. I'm putting a pin in it. Let's get rid of the other ones. C overlooks the possibility. So, would this weaken that the population has increased significantly? Well, that's why we're measuring the rate, not the total amount, right? Like they took care of this by saying that we're measuring the rate. It's the number of crimes per 100,000 people. So they're controlling for any population increases. That is not going to matter here. D presumes without providing warrant. Wait, where's that? Okay, good. Presumes without providing warrant that alternative measures for reducing crime would be more effective. Where did we assume that there's another better way? We never went as far as saying, hey, there's a better way. We just said, hey, putting people in prison cannot help. Nowhere did we go as far as assuming that there would be something else that's more effective. And then E takes for granted. So, another fancy way of saying assumes. Do we assume this? That the number of prisoners must be proportional to the number of crimes committed. Where did we assume that it has to be like a 1-to-1 ratio for number of prisoners versus number of crimes committed? Number one, we're not even measuring number of crimes committed, we're measuring rate. Number two, I mean, we said percentage, percentage of the population. So we weren't even measuring number of prisoners. Goodbye. B is perfect. I'm locking in.
Nice. Yeah, awesome. All right, yeah. So it looks like we had a question for the last question on this, which was about the sufficient assumption, which is that do they usually have P then C format in answers? And yeah, right. Premise to conclusion gaps are very big on this test. And so yes is the answer to that question. Sorry, a little bit of a delay there. Any questions for Bailey? Maybe we'll give it a nice 15-second pause here just to make sure we aren't blowing ahead. That was great, Bailey. Yeah, I think you noted a right thing too here, which is definitely something like C. Definitely something like C, I think would probably look pretty attractive here because it's like maybe there's a larger population, and so that's why the prison population is larger. But I think you correctly noted that we're talking about the rates and the percentage of the population in prison, and so the absolute value is going to be irrelevant here. But yeah, I'm guessing that's probably a pretty attractive answer. Can you go over the
Right.
correlation between assumption and taking for granted? Yeah, Bailey, you want to take that or?
Okay, yeah. So all that I meant by that was on the LSAT. When they say takes for granted, that just means that they assume something. You can treat the rest of the answer choice like a necessary assumption, like they have to assume this. But just memorize that. Takes for granted in this context means assumes. I feel like it's weird because when I first read that, like when I was first studying, I was like, what do you mean takes for granted? Like when you take a friend for granted, you don't appreciate them enough. No, they just mean like it assumes it to be true, which honestly is similar to takes for granted, like you assume your friend's going to be around.
Yeah. I wonder if that's probably where it's coming. Really, when you take your friend for granted, you're like assuming that they're always going to be there. And so it's a good point. I never
Right.
take my friends for granted, so that's not
You
something
would
I'm used to.
never.
Yeah,
Henry would never.
I could never. I couldn't be me. All right, cool. Can you
Wait, do
explain
you
the
know the answer to this
difference?
question? Yeah. What's the famous flaw approach? Do you know this?
The difference between is the famous flaw. So I think what you're asking is, in terms of famous flaws, is there a like there's a set of flaws effectively that are
Oh,
common. So like
I
flipping
see.
sufficient versus necessary, correlation versus causation. And so when you're looking at a flaw question, you can always ask yourself, does it fall into one of these buckets? Right here, I would say that this bucket, it's a little bit. I can't put the exact name to the famous flaw, but effectively, there could be multiple forces in play, right? So just because you lose money in your banking app, that doesn't mean that you didn't get a raise because you could get a lot, you could earn more money and still lose money ultimately through other means, increase your spending, for example, or maybe taxes go up. And so I think the famous flaw approach, or where you look for the named flaws, works pretty nicely in helping you identify an issue. The added step, though, is that often flaw questions will have answer choices not written the way you would write a famous flaw, right? Or how
Right.
you would write a flaw to be. And so I think what Bailey is illustrating here is a way to approach the writing of these flaw answer choices so you can answer, right? So when you say ignores the possibility of that, another way to look at that is what comes afterwards should weaken the argument, right? You're only going to be ignoring, it's only a flaw if it's ignoring a problem in the argument. Whereas takes for granted what comes after, as Bailey mentioned, is a necessary assumption. So I don't think I wouldn't say there's a big difference. It's mostly just,
Yeah.
can you identify a potential issue here? And then look for an answer choice that accurately reflects that issue. There's a bunch of different ways to describe the flaw. I hope that answers the question, though. Um,
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Okay,
did you
cool.
memorize the famous the flaws when you were studying, like all the named
I
flaws?
never memorized the fancy names for them. I got familiar with what those flaws were, but like for example, we used to make fun of me for this all the time when I first started teaching classes. Like people would bring up ad hominem flaw, and I'd be like, I don't know what the hell that flaw
Yeah.
is, but is it like there's another flaw where we're talking about, hey, just because this thing is true about this person, they're making a bad argument, and they're like, yeah, that's the flaw, like
I
attacking
only
somebody's a trait about the person. So
I
I
only
never memorized the
subtract
fancy names.
homonyms, right? Yeah.
You only,
No.
yeah.
Is that no?
We
That's
only
bad.
subtract. Yeah, I literally thought it was a Harry Potter spell. This is true. I was like, I've had, is that the same as the one that kills people? I don't know.
Um,
Anyways, you don't have to know the fancy names because honestly, they rarely even use those in the answer choices. That would be like too much of a gimme, honestly.
yeah,
They like to confuse you with fancy LSAT wording. And so you're just going to stay flexible. You're going to translate into your own words.
yeah. All right. I guess we can move it on to the next question then, which
Yep.
I guess means I'm up here. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at this. So, Winona responds to Inez by. So, to me, this looks like a method of reasoning question where we're supposed to describe how Winona's argument or whatever Winona says works. Usually, these are going to be written in general terms, and so what I like to do is take the general claims and map the stimulus onto them. I'll show you how we do that. So Inez says space exploration programs pay for themselves many times over since such programs result in technological advances with everyday practical applications. Okay, so these exploration programs, they pay for themselves because you get these other advances. Space exploration is more than the search for knowledge for its own sake. Investment in space exploration is such a productive investment in developing widely useful technology that we can't afford not to invest in space exploration. Double negative here, annoying, but effectively we're saying that we have to invest in space exploration. So we don't have to describe Inez's argument in the answers, but it's helpful to get a handle on what this is saying. Effectively, Inez is saying there's these tangential benefits to space exploration, and because these benefits are so lucrative, we should keep on doing space exploration. Let's see what Winona says. It's absurd to try to justify funding for space exploration merely by pointing out that such programs will lead to technological advances. If technology with practical applications is all that is desired, then it should be funded directly. All right, so Winona is saying, like, why should we fund space exploration if all we're after are these tangential, inventions, basically? Why don't we just fund those inventions directly? And so Winona is going against Inez's argument, not really disputing that the benefits are nice, but more saying that the way to get those benefits, it would probably be better to just go for it directly. And so I'm going to look for an answer that reflects that idea. I would take a look at A, showing that there's no evidence that the outcome Inez anticipates will in fact be realized. I mean, I think Winona would one. I mean, this is not what Winona's saying, but I think Winona might even agree that, like, yeah, if you do space exploration, you're going to get these benefits. But there's just a better way to do this, which is just to fund the advances directly, right? Like go after the thing you're after instead of taking some side route to it through space exploration. Let's take a look at B. Suggesting that Inez has overlooked evidence that directly argues against the program Inez supports. I mean, I don't really think there's any overlooking of evidence that directly argues against the program that Inez supports. I mean, I think Winona is just saying there's other ways to get these benefits. So I'd eliminate something like B, maybe come back to it. I mean, I guess you could say you're overlooking something. C says demonstrating that the piece of evidence that Inez cites contradict each other. No contradiction in Inez's argument. I mean, Winona's actually very agreeable to Inez's argument, but simply saying, hey, look, if what we're after are these benefits, let's just fund those benefits directly. Eh, the benefits of space exploration don't really justify space exploration because we could just get those benefits through other means. C says demonstrating that piece oh, no, we already covered that. D, providing evidence that the beneficial effects that Inez desires can be achieved only at great expense. No, I mean, I don't think Winona's saying that like the space exploration is a great expense. I mean, it probably is an expense on Winona's account. But to say it's a great expense is a little too extreme. Additionally, too, Winona's problem is the roundabout way we're getting these advances in technology through space exploration rather than the actual cost. So I'd eliminate something like D. And then E, claiming that the goal that Inez mentions could be pursued without the program Inez endorses. Yeah, this looks pretty good to me. I mean, this seems to accurately describe what Winona is saying by simply saying, like, I mean, we don't have to do space exploration to get these advances. Let's just fund the advances directly. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel E predicted. Feel free to lock it in here.
Good. Lock it in. Yay. Perfect. You killed it. Any questions on this one, you guys?
We'll take a couple seconds here.
I think big picture, it's really helpful to just make sure that you're spending your time up front in the stimulus, really pre-phrasing these, not getting too attached to exactly the words that you're going to see in those answer choices, because like they're going to use fancy words that maybe you're not prepared for, but
Mhm.
just making sure that you're understanding what's going on in your own words, which Henry did a really good job of, and even rephrasing Inez's argument too. I think that really helps the context. And then yeah, that makes these answer choices so much easier to parse through.
Yeah. All right.
All right. I see no questions.
Let's keep on cruising here.
Onwards and upwards. All right, back to me. Ooh, another flaw question. Lucky Bailey. That makes sense. They're very common in this test. So, most vulnerable to criticism. That's just another way to say, hey, what's the flaw in the reasoning here? We're going to try to figure out where's their conclusion? Where are premises? Why are we not believing this conclusion based on those premises? Prephrase in our own words. Again, like if I can match it to a common or famous argument flaw, then cool. We'll try to put it into that box. But I really just try to put this in my own words, keep an open mind for how they're going to phrase it, go on those answer choices to test. Is this entirely true about the argument? And then just objectively, is it a flaw? So, marketing consultant, last year I predicted that LRG's latest ad campaign would be unpopular with customers. Okay, so I was thinking, hey, customers aren't going to like that and ineffective in promoting new products. Yeah, people don't like it. It's not going to be effective in promoting the new product. So, that was my prediction. But LRG ignored my predictions and took the advice of a competing consultant. This guy's mad. So he's like, okay, LRG just, shoved me to the side. I'm angry about it. This season's sales figures show that sales are down. Okay. And LRG's new products are selling especially poorly. Okay. So, like, kind of a correlation almost that they're setting up here. Hey, we took the advice of somebody else. And also, around the same time, the sales are down. New products are selling especially poorly. And now I'm guessing what they're going to be like is like, hey, this other guy was wrong and that was terrible. And, you should have gone with me. You learned your lesson. But do we even know that like this new, whatever the advice was from the competing consultant, that marketing campaign, do we know that that one actually was the cause of this? We don't know. Let's see what they do in the conclusion. Thus, the advertising campaign was ill conceived. Yeah, no. So we have no idea if the advertising campaign was ill conceived, like it didn't work, or it was like, I don't know, conceived. Yeah, it was just bad. It was a bad campaign. How do we know it was bad? I mean, like, what if these sales are down for a totally different reason? So yeah, kind of a classic correlation to causation argument. We're going to look for something that either just points out, hey, you can't just assume that causation is true because of correlation. It also might bring up some alternative explanation and be like, hey, you're forgetting this alternative explanation. A, it takes for granted. So again, takes for granted, fancy way of saying, why won't it let me write? Assumes, there we go, that LRG sales would not have been lower. Still, in the absence of the competitor's advertising campaign. Wait, what? Where do we assume that they would not have been lower still? So, like, they would not have been lower still. They would have been just the same, or if not more, in the absence of the competitor's advertising campaign. We don't go as far as having evidence that we assumed this to be true. We'd have to be able to point to something in the conclusion that from the premises, like we can tell that they're assuming, hey, had we not done this campaign, the sales would not have been lower still. So we're getting rid of that one, just not descriptively accurate. B, it fails to consider, okay, so like again, would this possibility weaken the economic factors unrelated to the advertising campaign? Oh, yeah, like alternative explanation may have caused, yes, perfect, LRG's low sales figures. Beautiful. I mean, that's exactly what we were thinking about. B for beautiful Bailey. Let's lock in. Well, no, we'll check the other answer choices. But I'm pretty confident about this. C, it takes for granted, assumes that in LRG's industry, new products should outsell established products. Where did we go as far as implying that new products should outsell established? We just never said this. Go back to the argument, point to something where they actually assume this. We have no evidence. D, it takes for granted, so another way to say assumes, that the higher sales of established products are due to effective advertising. Wait, hold on. Do we ever make any conclusions about the higher sales of the products we already have? No. So again, we don't assume this. We have no evidence that this is true in the argument. We're getting rid of it. Not descriptively accurate. And then E, it confuses a condition necessary for an increasing product sales with a condition that will ensure increased sales. Yeah, no. So classic sufficient necessary mix up. This is what JY always calls the oldest trick in the book, if you've ever seen any of our 7-stage explanation videos. However, we're not going to get gaslit by this and like freaking out because it's fancy wording and you're like, I don't know, maybe I missed it. No, there was no way that I could even diagram out the stimulus in the first place. There's nothing I can point to as a sufficient or a necessary condition in the stimulus. So there's no way they could have mixed up sufficiency and necessity going from premise to conclusion. We're getting rid of it confidently. Going back to B. Gotta be right. I don't know why it won't let me circle it. There we go. Yeah.
Nice. Excellent.
Sweet.
Flaws. They're crazy. Kind of almost a similar flaw to the last one.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, there was like some correlation there for sure. Aw.
Oh,
Wait, thank you. We just got a nice comment. It wasn't even a question. Eternally my favorite LSAT tutor duo. Thank you. We should do more questions or classes together.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hypothetically, you read it. Sorry.
Sure. Hypothetically, if I did not understand answer as A during my first pass of the choice, the answer is I should just skip it and come back to it. Yeah. So whenever you don't understand a particular answer choice, I think it's wise to look at the other ones and see if there's one that you understand, and then two that you actually like. Because if you don't a lot of times, sometimes it was famously in the old 7-stage videos called like the word salad answer. It's just kind of hard to parse through. For whatever reason, those are often wrong. Not always, but those are often wrong. And just because one of us doesn't understand it, that doesn't actually make it a word salad answer. But if you don't understand it, I would recommend you at the very least look at the other ones and see if there's something that you like. If you don't like any of the other four, probably worth taking another pass at A, maybe trying to understand it. And then after that, if nothing else is working, then you should just go to the next question. I think it's a good place to skip. A lot of, for me, when I'm skipping, or if I would skip, it would depend on my understanding of the stimulus. Like if I understand the stimulus pretty deeply, I don't really like to skip the answer choices. Whereas if you don't understand the stimulus or it looks kind of intimidating, then it's worth skipping, because if you don't understand the stimulus, there's no chance of getting it right.
Right.
Does that track with what you would say too, Bailey?
No, that works exactly. And I think, yeah, the best thing you can do if you don't understand is just leave it in, come back to it, lean more on process elimination, and like make sure that you don't like the other answer choices for some evidence-based reason. It's not just like vibes based. But yeah, exactly. Because I used to be eliminating answer choices left and right just because I didn't understand it. And it's like sometimes those are the wrong answers, but sometimes it's totally the right answer. And I just happen to not break it down into my own words. So yeah, just don't eliminate it if you don't understand it.
Okay, another question. I honestly thought of B, but I'm having a hard time trying to understand why A was wrong. And the same for E. Could you elaborate on the last one of the sales leg?
Sales
So
of leg.
of LRG.
LRG. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So going back to this really quick. Wait, what? Whatever. Okay, yeah. So for A, well, first of all, what do we know from the stimulus? We know that the sales are down. Like in general, sales are down. The new products specifically are selling especially poorly. That's all that we know from the premises. Conclusion then jumps to, okay, well, it must be the ad campaign's fault. The ad campaign was bad. So A is saying it assumes that the sales would not have been lower still. So like not lower still, that would be either the same or higher in the absence of the competitor's advertising campaign. Do I make any sort of assumptions, any sort of evidence where we're talking about what would have happened had we not had this campaign? Checking my premises. No, we just know that they ignored the predictions, took the advice of somebody else, just talked about what happened now, then just talked about what was the case about this campaign. So we can get rid of A because it's like, do we ever make any sort of hypothetical about what would have happened had we not done this campaign? We don't do that. And then, want me to break down E again?
One other thing to mention, I think, with A too, is I think it's actually a little bit descriptively inaccurate too, just with respect to the idea of it being the competitor's advertising campaign. We know that they took the advice of the competitor or the competing consultant. It's hard to know if the consultant made this ad campaign or simply, what if the consultant just said, "Don't do this person's campaign," right?
That's so true.
Don't do the authors. So I think they're making another mistake there. Um, yeah,
Agreed.
for A. I guess we can
Yeah.
go
So
to E
like
too.
the competitor's ad campaign, we don't even know that. And then yeah, so E again, it's just like this would be descriptively accurate if we had something that we could point to in the premises as like if this happens, then that must happen. Like then we would have a condition that's necessary. Maybe like, hey, if we increase product sales, then it must be that dot dot dot. We don't have anything that we explicitly referred to in the premises that's a necessary condition for increasing product sales. So you can even just stop right there, mid answer choice. No way that I could be committing this flaw if I don't have any necessary conditions given to me in the premises.
Often what you'll find too, it's like causal argument. I wouldn't say causal arguments, but arguments that lack clear conditionals are very rarely confusing sufficient versus necessary.
Right.
Usually, when you have that type of answer, you're gonna see more stimuli with premises or conclusions that say like if this then that or this must have been the case because of this. Um, Here we're missing those conditional indicators, which is a sign that something like E is wrong. Yeah,
Right. Perfect. Okay, cool. I think we
yeah.
can keep moving.
Keep on going. Okay, argument proceeds by. So looks like another method. We're
We
getting a lot
really
of
should have
double
like
dipping here.
not
I
just
know.
gone back and forth, but whatever.
It's all right. So I let's give this a read. So the top. So this is a method of reasoning question where we're supposed to describe the person's argument. Now there's not two people here, so we're just looking at this first at the stimulus here. The top prize in architecture, the Pritzker Prize, is awarded for individual achievement. Like Nobel Prizes for science, so it's the top prize for architecture. But the architects are judged by their buildings, and buildings are the result of teamwork. Interesting. As achievements, buildings are not like scientific discoveries, but like movies, which compete for the awards for Best Picture. So the achievements, the buildings aren't really like scientific. It's weird because it's like normally when I think of scientific discovery, it's like a group. But what they're saying is that the achievements, the buildings are more like movies, right? Which is like a group project. Thus, it would be better if the top prize in architecture rewarded to the best building rather than the best architect. So you could say this is kind of like the Oscars, right? Where it's like this is the best movie instead of saying this is the top individual person. I don't know. It's a little bit odd because there is, Oscars for the best actor for individuals, but okay. So when I look at this, what I'm seeing here is this looks like an analogy, an argument by analogy. And in particular, what they're saying here is that we have to give, or we should be giving prizes to buildings because that is what we do for movies. And so what I'd look for is an answer choice that says like because these two things are analogous, they should have similar outcomes. That's what happens when you have an argument by analogy. So we're going to look for an answer choice that reflects that idea. A says reaching a conclusion about the way something should be done in one field on the basis of comparisons with corresponding practices in other fields. This looks pretty good, right? Like I feel pretty comfortable with this right away. That is what we do. We do compare architecture to movies and say like, hey, look, we should be giving prizes to buildings. Why? Because we give prizes to movies. And so something like A looks pretty good. B says making a distinction between two different types of objects. I'm already a little bit suspicious of this. I mean, I guess they're drawing a distinction between science and architecture here, but the meat of this argument seems to be relating movies and buildings together. And whereas B talks about making a distinction, but we keep on going between two different types of objects in order to conclude that one has more inherent value than the other. Nothing about inherent value, so we'd eliminate something like B. C, pointing to similarities between two practices, okay, as a basis for concluding that criticisms of one practice can be rightly applied to the other. The criticisms here kind of bothers me because we're not saying like the criticisms of a movie could also be applied to that of a building. We're saying like the way we offer awards should be similar, but not that the actual awards themselves should be similar. So I'd eliminate something like C for that reason. D, arguing that because two different fields are disanalogous. All right, so there is a disanalogy here. Again, seems to be kind of missing the analogy between movies and buildings. Instead, talking more about like scientific discoveries versus buildings, but we'll keep on going. Arguing that because two different fields are disanalogous, the characteristics of one field are not relevant to justifying a conclusion about the other. Now, that's not at all what happens. I mean, when I look at this, it seems to be saying something like how the characteristics of science are not relevant to justifying conclusions about architecture. But again, they're not saying that like science's criticisms or characteristics can't be applied to architecture. We're talking about the way you award, the way you recognize, achievement in any of these fields. Ease is contending that an action is inappropriate. Okay, sure. by presenting an argument that a corresponding action in an analogous case is inappropriate. So this is, this first part almost doesn't look too bad. We do give a positive account for what we should be doing. We should be giving prizes to buildings, but we also say that we shouldn't be giving prizes to individual architects. So I guess that is all right. But really, where this goes wrong for me, is that saying that like a corresponding action in analogous case is inappropriate. We never say it would be like inappropriate to give an award for the best director. We just say this is what we do in this particular field. So that's why I'd eliminate something like E. A looks to be the best one here, so I would just pick this. I mean, I'd feel pretty comfortable with this. This is one of these where the way A is written makes it very hard to be wrong. Even though it's question 16, if I was pressed for time, I would just definitely just circle A and move. Yeah, but that's what a method of reasoning. Another method of reasoning. I don't like these questions a lot.
No, and it's weird because they're pretty rare, honestly. Like the fact that there's two of them in this one section is I mean, it's just rare. So now we know how to do them, but you really don't have to worry too much about these.
Okay. Is
Amazing. Okay,
POE
I
the
think
best
yeah.
approach for flaw questions? So a little bit delayed. I don't know. What do you think? Is POE the best approach for flaw questions?
I mean, so I'm always gonna make myself pre-phrase for flaw questions, like put into my own words what I might be looking for in the right answer before I look at those answer choices. Because number one, those answer choices are there to pull me in every which direction, convince me that they're right. They're there to hurt me. They're not there to help me. And so if I don't go in knowing at least a little bit of what I'm looking for, or at least what is one flaw that I was able to spot in the argument, I've already kind of done myself a disservice and I'm already going to make it so it's going to take so much longer to go through those answer choices. I think pre-phrase up front, but just focus on putting into your own words. Like don't stress yourself out to get the exact same words that they're going to put in those answer choices because like how are you going to know? Keep an open mind, go on those answer choices. I definitely still do cross elimination, but I wouldn't lean just on POE. I would definitely go in with this idea of what you might be looking for and how do you get better at that? You just spend a little bit more time on the conclusion. You ask yourself, well, what's so unsupported or brand new and not quite believable about this conclusion based on those premises? Totally get better at these. And if you want to get better at that big picture, by the way, do kind of a pre-phrasing drill where you cover up the answer choices. You don't even let yourself look at those answer choices until you can start putting in your own words. What is the flaw? I made myself do this by like literally putting a sticky note on my screen, making sure that I wasn't allowed to look at those answer choices till I could write down what I think a gap or hole in the reasoning, a flaw was. And that made me so much better at this big picture.
Yeah. I think too, depending on where you're at, like flaw questions especially, it's really nice to have a look at every single answer choice at least
Oh, yeah.
because as I think Bailey was mentioning, it's like the way they write these answer choices can be very abstract, and just because something looks good, you might look at another one that looks a little bit better. So at least having eyes on every single answer choice is nice. This is a little bit unlike like a sufficient assumption where if you like A, it doesn't really matter what
Right.
answer choice. Like if it works, it works. Whereas flaw
Right.
questions, they try to get you on the wording a lot more. Yeah, nice.
Agreed. Okay, cool. And I think we've been talking for long enough that questions for this question we were on would have popped up already. So we should be good to move on to the next. As always, if you guys have questions, just send them in the chat when you have them, and we'll address them as we can. Okay, cool. Just making it. Okay, perfect. The new one is pulled up. So hopefully they've switched the question type on me now. Yes, perfect. Well, not perfect. I don't love this question type, but we can do it. The reasoning in which one of the following is most similar to the reasoning in the argument above. Okay, so if we're trying to parallel the reasoning, this is a parallel method of reasoning question. We're trying to find similar reasoning. A lot of times, I would say, I don't know. I think more than half of these, at least a lot of times, these have to do with conditional reasoning. Like it's something that I might want to diagram out. Quick little rundown. I'm going to put an if A, then B statement in this format. The sufficient ideas, the thing on the left-hand side, the necessary ideas, the thing on the right-hand side. We just use that as a nice way to organize those relationships between sufficiency, which is the same thing as saying something is enough. Why won't it let me keep writing? Whatever. Enough, or one way to get to a guaranteed outcome. And the necessary is the thing that's needed. It's an only way. It's something that is guaranteed. So just a quick little rundown there in case you are not familiar with this stuff. Okay, let's go. So I'm trying to figure out which one of these parallels the reasoning. We're going to diagram this out if there's conditional reasoning. It looks like there is. I see some if. That will be something that can lead into the sufficient condition. And then we're going to just try to match that sort of diagram in these answer choices. Now, here's the thing. Topic does not matter. They're going to try to throw some answer choices that are similar topics. You don't make any decisions based on that. Very different topics also doesn't matter. And order does not matter either. So, like if the conclusion comes first in the answer choice, but the conclusion was last in the stimulus, doesn't matter whatsoever. All right. If S is not the most qualified of the candidates for sheriff, then Anderson is. Okay. So, what I'm going to do here is this is something that you'll see in these explanation videos for 7 Sage as well. It's what JY calls like kicking something into the domain. I'm going to put most qualified in the domain. Like if we're talking who's the most qualified, that's our domain. It applies to this entire situation. If it's not S, well, then it must be A. Hello. There we go. Thus, okay, so right away, jumping into the conclusion, let me remind myself that this is going to be the conclusion. If the most qualified candidate is elected and it's not S, then it will be A. So we're saying, hey, if we're in our domain, we're dealing with we're electing the most qualified and it's not S, well, then it must be A. Okay, cool. So if it helps you to kind of put this into more generic, if A, then B sort of wording, I'm going to do this over on the side here. So it's like if we have something in the domain, I'm just going to keep that as domain. If it's not A, then it must be B. And so then if we're in the realm of choosing our domain, like we are electing the most qualified candidate, and it's not A, well, then we must be choosing B. Again, I don't know why this doesn't let me write. Okay, perfect. So looking for something like that in these answer choices, let's go. A, if the excavation contract does not go to the lowest bidder, wait, right away, kind of weird. Like, so I want the domain maybe to be lowest bidder. And it's like, okay, if we were in the lowest bidder domain, come on, there we go. Then like, I would want it to say something like, if it's the lowest bidder, then if it's not somebody, then it would be somebody else. Already, this is weird. This is saying if it's not the lowest bidder, then it would be somebody else. We don't even have like 2 different people that could be the lowest bidder. Honestly, I'm going to get rid of this on first pass. There's just no way that that's going to be able to match my same reasoning. And you could see that they do end up adding in this other person later on in the conclusion, and we didn't do that in our conclusion. So we're not going to give that answer choice the time of day. B, if the lowest bidder on the sanitation contract is not Dylan. Okay, this is good because it's saying like if we're in the realm of the lowest bidder and it's not Dylan, well, then it is Ramsey. Very similar, like we have a domain. It's not one of them, so it must be the other. Let's just make sure that this says, so if we choose the lowest bidder, it's not D, it must be R. So if the contract goes to the lowest bidder, yep, and it does not go to D, perfect. As long as it says it must be R, that's my answer. Yep, then it will go to Ramsey. Again, this is saying, hey, we're in the domain, and it's not A, so it must be B. This is a rare situation where I would pick this and run, honestly. With these parallel method of reasoning, if it's their very cut and dry, sufficient necessary relationships, I know that I didn't mess anything up here. I'm going to pick B, but just for good measure, let me make sure that I know why the other ones are wrong. If K is not awarded the landscaping contract, then J will be. Okay, wait, let me change my color so this doesn't get super confusing. So yeah, this would still work for first pass. It's like, hey, if we're talking in terms of the landscaping contract, if it's not K, then it would be J. So if the contract goes to the lowest bidder, wait, whoa. So then all of a sudden, wait, the domain is no longer the landscaping contract. It's like, who is the lowest bidder? We're getting rid of that right away. I wanted the lowest bidder to be my domain in the first place. C, if H did not submit the lowest bid on the maintenance contract, then neither did E. Okay, so if we're in the terms of the lowest bidder and it's not H, then it must be E. So far, that's okay. So if the contract goes to lowest bidder and there we go. So this is saying, hey, lowest bidder, and it does not go to E. I didn't want it to say not E. I wanted to say not H, right? Because this would be like domain and not B, then it must be A. And no, we don't know that. That's actually a bad argument now. That's mixing up sufficient and necessary. Wait, sorry, I should keep this all the same. Okay, cool. Goodbye. And then E, if Perez is not the lowest bidder on the catering contract, then S is. So if we're talking lowest bidder and it's not P, then it must be S. So far, that's okay. So if S does not get the contract and P does not get it, wait, what? So if it's not S and it's not P right away, I'd stop reading because I'm like, well, wait, I wanted to just be like, we're ruling out one, so it must be the other. Goodbye, E. Questions? Wait, I guess, did I get it right first? I should double check.
Yes, I think that is correct.
Perfect.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Any questions? These questions are annoying. No one likes to do these questions.
Parallel or just all
parallel.
LSAT questions?
Yeah, parallel. Actually, looking at this too, because I was kind of doing it along. I mean, in parallel questions, there's like a bunch of different reasons why something may or may not be wrong. And if you look at one answer choice and you notice one thing that's wrong, you toss it. Also, is there not something else that's like also a little bit weird? Like if H did not submit the lowest bid, then neither did E. Like, isn't this thing that they're both not doing it too?
For
In
E?
D for D
or
here.
for D. Oh, yeah. See, I don't even think wait, did I even read that right? So if the contract goes to lowest bidder and does not go to E, oh, then it will not go to H either. Yeah, no, I didn't even write that down right. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So extra wrong. Exactly.
Yeah, or something like yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on with D, but yeah, it's like it's kind of like it's like they're pairing both of them together. It's a little bit odd.
Right.
All right.
True.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. I see no questions, so we'll keep moving. We can always go back if we need to.
All right. Okay, flaw question here. Interesting. So yeah, let's give this a read. Arguments flawed in that. An art historian argues that because 15th century European paintings were generally more planimetric, that is, two-dimensional with no attempt at suggesting depth, so it's missing like that third dimension. Then there were 16th. Then were the 16th century paintings. 15th century paintings had greater mastery over painting than did 16th century painters. All right, so I guess this art historian is saying that like planimetric elements are what leads to mastery. However, this conclusion is wrong. So the author here is concluding that it's not true that these 15th century painters had greater mastering. Well, why not? 15th century European painters did not have greater mastery of painting. For the degree to which a painting is planimetric is irrelevant to the painter's mastery. Okay, interesting. So, when I look at this, there's really the thing that I'm seeing here is the author has not done any work to actually show that they did not have greater mastery of painting. They just tell me that the planimetricness of painting is irrelevant to a painter's mastery. But if it's irrelevant, then it's just up in the air, right? Like our position on this test should always be agnostic. So just because someone hasn't proved something, that doesn't mean that I'm back to saying that, well, whatever they're saying is wrong, right? If I say that 2 + 2 = 4, why? Because red is the best color. I mean, you would say, well, that's not the reason why 2 + 2 = 4, but nevertheless, 2 + 2 does equal 4. And so when I look at this, I'd say like, okay, so sure, planimetricness is irrelevant to a painter's mastery, but why does that mean that the 15th century painters did not have greater mastery of painting? It just means that I don't know. And so, going back to the quote unquote the famous flaw situation, I think it's like absence of evidence isn't evidence of the opposite. I don't know the actual name of that, but that's the phrase that people like to use.
Yeah, proof of
do you know
absence,
the actual
absence of proof, I think. I don't remember though.
Actually, absence of proof. I think that's probably the correct way to put it. So, let's take a look at any answer choice, or let's take a look at some of these answer choices that maybe reflect that idea. It's probably not going to say that, but it'll say something to that effect. A says rejects a position. All right, so yeah, rejecting a position merely because the proponent of the position has other objectionable views. What are these other objectionable views? I'm not so sure. We are keeping our argument solely to the 15th century and the 16th century painters and the planimetricness. So another objection. This seems more like an ad hominem, right? Like, oh, these art historians, they think that, I don't know. What's an objectionable view that people have nowadays? It's late. I can't. I'm
Be
usually
careful,
a little bit more
man.
on top of myself. Yeah,
that really could go in a lot of
what's
directions.
an objectionable view that people have nowadays? Whatever. I don't know. That
view.
I don't.
That
Man,
people
I'm not
should-
witty and funny at 8:54 p.m.
You're
Sorry.
so witty
No,
and
I'm
funny
not.
all the
I'm not witty and funny.
time.
If this was 8 a.m., I'd have a much more witty comment about something that's
Oh wait,
objectionable.
okay, we
but
got
you get
one
the
from
idea.
our producer. Art historians don't like pizza. Is that objectionable?
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's objectionable, right? So if these art historians said that they didn't like pizza, they're wrong because they don't like pizza. Well, then A would be a good answer here. B says illicitly relies on two different meanings of the term mastery. It seems like we're using mastery in the same sense here. So I'd eliminate something like B. Instead of the answer choice, you really need to have a word where there's like two different but clear meanings, and then they get used differently. So the example I'd say is like, hey, look, those person's glasses are cool, so their face must be cold. Right there, like cool and cold. Cool could be used in different ways there, right? Cool to like visually versus like cool like the temperature. That's not what's happening here, so we'd eliminate B. C takes a necessary condition for an argument being inadequate to be a sufficient condition for an argument being inadequate. There's no sufficient versus necessary confusion happening here, especially for an argument being inadequate. I mean, it doesn't need to be the case that for a painter's mastery to be better has something to do with their planimetricness. I mean, whether or not they were better at planimetric or bad or not good at planimetric painting, it's kind of irrelevant to whether or not they're a good painter. So there's really no sufficient versus necessary confusion happening here. D says bases its conclusion on two claims that contradict each other. There's no contradiction within the arguments. I'd toss along D. E rejects the position on grounds that an inadequate argument has been made for it. Yeah, this looks pretty good. This is the way you would normally phrase this on the LSAT, where we are saying that something is false because there's not a good argument that it's true. And yeah, we'll lock it in here. Feeling pretty comfortable with this one. I have not seen this question in a long time, if ever.
Nice. No,
I
same.
don't.
I don't remember that one because honestly, probably whenever I like try to look at it for class, I'm like, planimetric. That sounds too hard for me to figure out what it is. Although they literally define it to you in the stimulus. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So I guess there are some questions about the like sufficient versus necessary. One thing here, it's like when I look at something like C, I immediately discount it to some degree because of the lack of conditional logic here. I don't see any
Right.
conditionals, and so it's incredibly suspicious. Additionally, it's talking about requirements for an argument being wrong. What are the requirements for the argument to be wrong? It's like I don't know. Like, what is sufficient for this argument to be wrong? I can't even think of it, and so that's another way to toss it. Yeah, yeah. Tough question though. I mean, I'm seemingly tough question.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good work. Yeah, and if this flaw wasn't on your radar before, just, write it down, put it in your back pocket. You could call this like absence of evidence, absence of proof. And I really liked your example for that. Like if you ever want to know what this flaw is, it's like somebody making a solid conclusion, but just with ridiculous premises. 2 + 2 is 4. Why? What did you say? Because the color red? Something about the color red? That
Yeah,
was
like
good.
red is cool or something like that. I don't know.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, what? That has nothing to do with the conclusion, but like technically your conclusion's still right. It's just like not a way that you can discount an argument. And so that's exactly what we are looking for in these answer choices. Amazing. By the way, I'm sending in the chat this argument flaw cheat sheet you might want to refer to on the 7Sage website. Really helpful resource, breaks down all those common or like famous named argument flaws, and you'll be able to see instances where those show up in the actual test. All right.
All right. Yeah. Let's
Shall
do
we
it.
keep moving?
Yeah. Let's keep cruising, cruising and moving.
Cruising for a bruising. Is that the phrase?
Cruising for a brute, maybe? Is that like
I don't
you're
actually know where I got that from.
asking to get beat up? That must be what it's from. Like
Oh, good. I got
you're inviting
confirmation.
trouble. Yeah. Are you cruising for
Okay,
trouble?
perfect. I'm always looking for trouble. I love to rile people up. All right. Which of the following, if true, would most weaken the argument? Got it. So we're trying to make it's from Teen Beach Movie. What? No, that's crazy. Okay. Sorry, that was just from our producer. Which one of the following, if true, would most weaken the argument? So we're trying to make a conclusion less likely to be true. It's very similar to a flaw question. We're just kind of going one step further than the flaw question asks us to do. Instead of trying to just describe what the reasoning is, we're trying to add a fact that would make the conclusion less likely to be true. But by the way, this is the exact same sort of process you want to have when you're evaluating those answer choices for flaw that are led into with ignores the possibility or overlooks the possibility, right? Because like we were saying before, you're supposed to treat that possibility like a potential weakener. If it weakens, if it forgets a problem, then exactly that would be the flaw. And so very similar here, just kind of like parallels between those question types. Okay. We're going to figure out where the conclusion is. Why am I not believing it right now? And then we'll keep it open mind, go on these answer choices. If it's true, would it make my conclusion less likely to be true? A carved flint object. I'm already like, what is flint? I don't know. Something you can carve. It depicts a stylized human head with an open mouth. Okay, so it's like Picturing a very, very cute object here, or maybe a scary one. It was found in a Stone Age tomb in Ireland. Okay, creepy. I'm locked in now. We found this thing in a tomb. There's this creepy head
Mm.
on it. Let's see what we say about it.
Whoa.
Are you liking this? You're
Yeah.
visualizing? I'm picturing Henry's head on a little
Mhm.
flint object, and I'm terrified.
Yeah.
So, some archaeologists believe that the object was a weapon. Oh, got it. Okay, proposed explanation. It's a weapon. The head of a warrior's mace. A mace, is that like what you use to beat somebody up? But it's too small for that purpose. Okay, a classic way to make an argument. Other people think this, but hey, let's give a reason why we think they're wrong. So some people think that it's a weapon, but we're like, nah, man, it's too small. Weapon, too small. Because of its size, okay, because it's, too small to be a mace, and the fact that an open mouth symbolizes speaking, I mean, yeah, you're kind of reaching there, but whatever. The object was probably the head of a speaking staff. What? Okay, kind of random to me. I'm like, how do we know? Literally just because it was too small to be a weapon and open mouth can symbolize speaking. So we think, like, the thing that I just put here, this is our main conclusion. We're trying to prove that, hey, the object really was probably the head of a speaking staff. And I'm like, what? You have terrible reasons to believe this already. And then they just give me some context on what a speaking staff is. They're like, it's a communal object. Okay, so like objects shared by the community. It's passed around a small assembly to indicate who has the right to speak. Honestly, should we do that on the podcast? I know we don't actually have like a physical
Like a staff.
staff that we could pass around, but maybe we should be indicating who has the right to speak.
Uh, There's
Just kidding.
the
I think we're
nat
doing a
the
good job.
pause, the pause. The real
Right.
speaking
It's just the
staff is the
pause.
pause. Yeah.
Yep. True. Okay, so long story short, I'm just like really weak argument for the fact that it was the head of a speaking staff. Anything that tells me, hey, it's probably not a speaking staff, it could be something else, that would be a contender for a weakener here. I'm not going to attach to a prephrase because I don't know where they're going to go with this in these answer choices. Keep them open mind. If this were true, how does it connect back to my argument? What bearing does it have on my conclusion? I need it to weaken. So, A, what if the tomb in which the object was found did not contain any other objects that might have been weapons? Wait, so it didn't have anything else that could have been a weapon? If anything, that's just kind of telling me, hey, it probably wasn't a weapon. But like, even then, I don't know how I would make any decisions based on that. There just weren't any other potential weapons there. Okay, cool. Does that tell me, yes, it's a speaking staff? No, not necessarily. And I'm also not even trying to say, yes, it's a speaking staff. I'm trying to say, no, it's not a speaking staff. So, yeah, getting rid of A right away. Who cares if there was any other objects that could have been weapons? B, communal objects. What do I know about communal object? Communal object. Okay, so a speaking staff is one of them. First, I was like, what? Why would they tell me that? But we just talked about that. They were normally passed. When they say normally, they mean more than 50% of the time. So that's pretty strong. Normally passed from one generation to the next in Stone Age Ireland. Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. I would keep it on first pass because I'm like, well, communal object, at least we know that that applies to a speaking staff. Normal pass from one generation to the next. I don't know exactly what that means for the argument. Let's keep it in for real time and get rid of the other ones. See if I can come right back to it. See, the object was carved with an artistry that was rare in Stone Age Ireland. Okay, so if anything, it's like it's a gem for Stone Age Ireland, or that might weaken the fact that we found it in Stone Age Ireland, but we can't ignore the premises. We can't go against the premises. It literally was found in a Stone Age tomb in Ireland. So yeah, no, this tells me nothing about whether or not it was probably the head of a speaking staff. That's what we're trying to weaken. Goodbye. D, the tomb in which the object was found was that of a politically prominent person. Well, if anything, I might add an assumption to make that a strengthener, right? It's like, ooh, politically prominent. Those would be the people that have speaking staffs. All the more reason to believe that it's the head of a speaking staff. Not at all going to weaken here. I'd say strengthen, if anything. And then E, a speaking staff with a stone head. Okay, wait. So if it was a speaking staff with a stone head, aka what we think that it is, it's thought to symbolize a warrior's mace. Okay, but it's just symbolizing. Is that saying that it literally is a warrior's mace? I feel like this would be a really good trap answer because, you might latch onto it and be like, oh, so I guess, it really is a warrior's mace. But we just said that it's thought to symbolize. And it's also saying that it's like if we know that something is a speaking staff with a stone head, it's just supposed to symbolize. But if anything, it would be like, okay, wait, so it really is a speaking staff. So no, that's not going to weaken. Going right back to B. Let's see if I can make a case for it. They were normally passed from one generation to the next. What do we know about this? It was found in a tomb. Oh, there we go. So if it was passed from one generation to the next, it would still be in the care of like this person's ancestor. It would not end up in the tomb with this person. Yeah. That gives me reason to believe that it's not actually the head of a speaking staff because that wouldn't have ended up in a tomb. Yeah.
I think so.
Oh, perfect. And somebody caught that before me in the chat. Good work.
Yeah, this is a tough question. I remember this question from when I was studying way back in the day and getting it wrong. I made a case for C because I was like, oh, if it was rare in Stone Age Ireland, then maybe it was planted there. I guess I don't know or
Uh, but then
something
even then,
along
it's
those
like getting
lines.
away from the conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, but maybe speaking staffs were rare too, right? Like they were special. They dictated the right to speak. This is a tough question for sure.
Right. And I see what you guys are saying in the chat. It's like, it's kind of feels like an assumption. And by the way, like weaken, strengthen questions. Same with resolve, reconcile, explain. We're looking for the thing that most weakens. And so what that means is like it's not going to be a perfect answer. It's not going to destroy the argument. You might need a small, reasonable assumption to make the answer choice work. When you're stuck between a couple answer choices, ask yourself what kind of assumptions would I have to add to make this work and go with the one with the least amount of reasonable assumptions. That's all that you can do here. It's like finding the lesser of all the evils.
Yeah. And it's a great point too because it's like you don't even have to make the conclusion false too. It's just you just have to say it's like
Right.
yeah, I'm less persuaded now. Tough question though, definitely tough. Ugh, carved flint
Agreed.
objects. All
Carved
right,
flint. I've never had to deal with that in my life. All right. Should we go to the next one?
angry, yeah, angry face. Yeah, no one likes that question. All right,
No.
let's take a look at this question here. Argument relies on the assumption, so it says relies, so that's how we know it's a necessary assumption. Let's give this a read. Advent of chemical fertilizers led the farmers in a certain region to abandon the practice of periodically growing green manure crops such as alfalfa in a field to rejuvenate its soil. As a result, the soil structure in a typical farm or field is in the region is poor. Excuse me. Again, 9 o'clock. I can't speak today. So, I mean, you look at this and what they're saying is they're using chemical fertilizers, and that's led to abandoning the green manure, which means that we're going to have poor soil structure. So, to significantly improve the soil structure, farmers will need to abandon the use of chemical fertilizer. Interesting. Now, in a necessary assumption question, one of the things that you don't really need to do, but it's helpful, is to like look for a flaw in the argument. And so, just looking at this, one of the problems I have is that they're saying that we need to abandon the use of chemical fertilizers when, like, why do we need to do that? I mean, it seems like the problem with the soil structure comes from the green manure, as far as we know, not the chemical fertilizers. And so, like, couldn't we just instead start planting the green manure crop and use the chemical fertilizers? Is that not another option? Like, I feel like based on these premises, if I wanted to improve the soil structure, I would just say, well, so they should start planting green manure crop again. And so I'm going to look for an answer that maybe reflects that idea or talks about it. Let's get this read. Now, one thing you can do with necessary assumption questions, I guess we didn't mention this, is you can negate the answer choice to see if it's truly a requirement. And so if you imagine the answer choice to be false and it ruins the argument, that's how you know you have a necessary assumption. And so A says most, if not all, farmers in the region who abandon the use of chemical fertilizers will periodically grow alfalfa. So what this is saying is that like if we end up abandoning, or most of them who end up abandoning will periodically grow alfalfa. Well, I mean, I don't know if I need most, if not all. I mean, what if I just like 40% of the farmers who abandon the use of chemical fertilizers in the region will periodically grow alfalfa? I mean, I feel like the author would say that's totally fine by me. And so we just negated the answer choice and the argument can still get done. It can still work, which means that it's a wrong answer. When we negate the right answer, it should be very bad for the author's argument. Let's keep on going here. B says applying the chemical fertilizers to green manure crops such as alfalfa has no positive effect on their growth. Okay, so I look at this, and if I was to negate it, we'd say like has some positive effect on their growth. So applying chemical fertilizer to green manure crops will have some positive effect on their growth. Okay, sure, maybe it has some positive effect, but the author would still say to this, like, okay, sure, it might have a positive effect on their growth, but in order for us to get a better soil structure, we need to abandon the use of chemical fertilizers. Even though there's a positive effect on the green manure crops, doesn't really end up mattering here. I'm really looking for something here that says that like maybe you could do both at the same time when we negate it. C says the most important factor. I'm already very suspicious of this. Most important factor in necessary assumption usually ends up being wrong. The reason why is it's very rare that we need something to be a most important factor. Generally, we need something to just be a factor. And so if it's not the most important factor, maybe it could be the second most important factor. But let's keep on reading. The most important factor influencing the soil quality of a farm field is soil structure. What if it's not the most important factor? Again, what if it's the second most important factor? If it's the second most important factor, that's totally fine for the author, right? The soil structure ends up being poor, and that hurts the soil quality. So I don't need to be the most important factor. So I'd eliminate something like C. D. Chemical fertilizers themselves have a destructive effect on the soil structure of farm fields. I mean, this I'm pretty unattracted. I probably wouldn't even bother negating this. This definitely doesn't need to be the case because didn't they just tell us that the whole issue and kind of what we identified up front? It's not that the chemical fertilizers themselves are bad. It's that they are using you're using chemical fertilizers instead of the green manure crop. And that's what's bad. So when I look at this, it's like even if the chemical fertilizers weren't bad, the other would say, yeah, but the problem is that the chemical fertilizers are neutral for the soil, but the fact that it's replacing the green manure crop is what's harming the soil structure. So that's why I'd eliminate something like D. E says many, if not all, the farmers in the region will not grow green manure crops unless they abandon the use of chemical fertilizers. And so this looks pretty good. If we negate it, effectively what this means is that the farmers in the region will grow green manure crops even if they don't abandon the use of chemical fertilizers. Right? With a not unless, you could say like the negation of not A unless B, you could say, is A even without B. And so, in other words, if they will still grow green manure crop, even if they continue to use chemical fertilizers, then the author's argument's ruined, right? This says that you can do both at the same time. And so something like E is a pretty nice answer. It matches our prephase. Now, I think this question would be pretty, I mean, I think you can still do it. This is a tougher question when it comes to negation. I think these answers are a lot harder to negate than a lot of other, answers. So if this is the kind of thing where you're looking at this, you're like, oh man, like how do you quickly negate? It, it takes practice. It's not something that I would expect anyone to just like instantly do. Um, but yeah, okay, cool. How does that feel? Does that feel we're
Agreed.
feeling okay here?
That feels good to me. Yeah, one more thing to add for A, if this like helps it click for anybody, is as soon as we see that it's like they will periodically grow alfalfa, I'm like, well, alfalfa is just one example of a green manure crop. We just have to be assuming that like something about green manure crops in general doesn't have to be alfalfa. So that could make it
Very
easier
good.
too.
It's another great. It's totally something I missed on first pass too. It's like you're right. They don't need to. They don't even need to grow alfalfa. Alfalfa is an example. That's an even easier way to toss that. Yeah. Um,
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So I
cool.
don't think we had questions about this one, but then we're about to get another flaw question, I think. No, that's totally okay if you have to pause the video a lot. That would make sense. I would do the same. Okay. You mentioned you like to prephrase for flaw, right? I'm having a hard time coming up with generic prephrases. So all that you need to do, okay, so you're going to keep typing, but let me already talk about it. Oh, wait, in the ad campaign one, I was like, maybe there were other reasons the campaign failed. Perfect. Yeah. So like keep that in mind. And that's literally all that you need to be doing to prephrase. Like that's a really good prephrase to engage. But then you got swayed with A. Okay, so what you want to be doing is when you go down those answer choices, is just like, wait, is this entirely descriptively accurate? Like, even if it's not, so you were looking about A, and if I remember A correctly, that was the one that just wasn't quite accurate about the stimulus. Like, it was attributing something to the stimulus that just did not actually happen. It was saying that, hey, we're assuming what would happen if we had not done this ad campaign. And it's like, pause right there. Do I actually have any reason to believe that this is true from the stimulus? I don't think we have any reason to believe that this is true. Like, is this true about the stimulus? So, like, you did a great job prephrasing. I think you just need to trust your prephrase a little bit more. And again, you're never prephrasing to get too locked in on it and then overlook the other answer choices. You're prephrasing to engage, and then you're just going to keep an open mind. But I think what you probably need to get better at is not the prephrase. The prephrase is spot on. It's at really breaking down those answer choices into your own words and understanding exactly what's wrong with it. And again, how do you do that? You just pause every couple words when you're going down those answer choices and you're just like, hey, what does this mean? How does that apply to the argument? Can I make a case for that to apply here? All right. Okay. Yeah. Now we're scrolling back up to it. Perfect. A little bit late, but that's okay. So yeah, this is the question that we were talking about. Is this making sense? Oh,
All right.
okay.
Well,
Cool.
we're out of here, I guess. All right. Let's keep on cruising then.
That's weird.
Uh,
All right. This is mine. Let's go. So, which one of the following statements about the students who took Spanish 101 at the university last semester? Okay, this is nice. They're like telling me specifically what this statement is going to be about. Can be properly inferred from the information above. Okay, properly inferred. You could type that as like a must be true question. You could call this an inference question. Honestly, very similar. It's just like, hey, if all this stuff up top is a fact, what else do we know? What else do we know? And they love to get sneaky with these answer choices. They're going to throw some trap answers at us, which sound really close to what we actually know, but they're not quite going to be right. So we're going to be very careful here. All right. And by the way, there's usually a lot of diagramming here. If I see some if A, then B sort of statements or things like most, some, we can totally diagram this. So most of the students who took Spanish 101 at the university last semester attended every class session. So if you want to represent this visually, I would say that if you took Spanish 101 at this university last semester, so I'm just going to be like if 101, then more than 50% of you, most arrow, that just signifies, hey, more than 50% of you guys attended every class. We'll just say attended every class. Cool. So that's all I know so far. I can't really conclude anything else from that. Like, I can't say, hey, if you attended every class, most of you were in this class. Cause, like, number one, that doesn't even make sense the other way. Like, that wouldn't apply here. Plus, most arrows are never reversible. Let's keep going. However, each student who received a grade lower than B minus, okay, so if you got a grade lower than B minus, is that the lower than sign? Less than, alligator eats the bigger thing. Yeah. Okay. So if it's less than B minus, then what do we know about you? You must have missed at least one class session. So you did not attend every class. Okay, cool. So I think now I can make the contrapositive of this and chain these together. If you did attend every class, what do we know about you? Well, you must not have received a grade lower than B minus. And yeah, they're saying lower than B minus. So that's not B minus or lower. That's lower than B minus. So it would be like, I guess, C or below. Let's chain this all together. I can just bring this right back up to my original. So if you were in 101, then most of you attended every class. And everybody who attended every class, well, they did not get a grade lower than B minus. So they got a grade that was B minus or higher. Let me just write that out for myself really quick so I don't forget. They must have gotten a grade that was B minus or higher, greater than or equal to now at this point. Okay, cool. So yeah, all that I can conclude here is like most of the students in this class got a grade that was equal to or greater than B minus. I don't know anything else. A, at least some of the students, okay, so they're being weak with the wording, that could still follow here. But as long as it says something like at least some of the students who were in the class got a grade higher than B minus or greater than or equal to B minus. Let's see if they did that. Oh no, at least some of the student who received a grade of A minus or higher. Couple different issues here. Like I don't know anything if you received that grade. I guess I know like if you got less than a B minus, then you did not attend every class. But I don't know anything about if you received a grade of A minus or higher. A minus or higher was not even something that we distinguish between. So I'm going to get rid of this right away. I don't know anything about that group of students. B, most, if not all, of the students who missed at least one session. Wait, I don't know anything about this group, right? That would be like saying, hey, if you're in this group, then we know something else about you. But I don't have any arrows from that. Like that's why these diagrams are so helpful because they can just remind you what you know versus what you don't know. So right away, I'm already not liking this because I'm like, I don't know anything about the students who missed at least one class session. Did they, yes or no, get a certain grade? I have no idea. I just knew if you had a grade less than B minus, then you must have missed at least one class. So yeah, I'm going to stop right there. Most, if not all, of the students who missed at least one class session, I can't make any conclusions about that group. I just know if less than B minus, then not attended every class. C, most of the students received a grade higher than B minus. Oh, that's so close to what I want. But it can't just be higher than B minus, right? Because what's not lower than B minus could also include B minus. So this is so close, but it needs to say higher or equal to B minus. I'm going to hold out. D, at least one student who received a grade of B minus or higher. Okay, so if you got a grade of B minus or higher, again, I don't know anything about those. That's like as if I had something that could chain off of this. I have no idea. at least one of those students missed one or more class sessions? No, we just know that if you attended every class, then you were in that group of students. We do not know if you were in that group of students. You must have missed one or more. Goodbye.
Mm.
And then E, more than half of the students, so that's another way to say most, received a grade of, yes, there we go. That was my original prediction, B minus or higher. And that fixes what was wrong with C, right? Because they should have reminded ourselves that, or we should have reminded ourselves that it didn't have to be just higher. It could have been equal to, and E takes care of that. Lock it in. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Bang.
Oh, yeah.
Bang. They almost
Okay,
got you a
yay.
C. Almost did that? No, they
Oh, they
didn't almost
almost
get you a
got me, but
C.
I'm not going to get got.
No, yeah, you can't be got. This is
It's a tough
this is
one.
kind of a famous one, right? It's like this problem.
Yeah,
I
yeah. It
remember
definitely
it's
comes up a good amount. Yeah.
yeah, I know because not lower, tough to deal. It's negations are tough to deal with, right? What's not first place? Is it last place? No, it could be second
Right. And so
place.
always
Yeah.
think about like if you're tempted to think that the negation of something is just its opposite, like say that we're like, hey, what's the negation of early? If I just am like, oh, yeah, well, the negation of early seems like it's late, right? Like, well, if you're not early, then you're late. Well, hold on. If you're not early, you could be right on time or
Whoa.
you could be late. So always bring it back to something like that. That's maybe like an easier to conceptualize example. If you're not early, that's what we mean by negating. It's like, okay, not early. It's not just automatically late. It's like you could be on time or late.
Mm.
Not getting worse could be the same, staying the same, or getting better. What's your take on reading answers E through A? I used to do things like that all the time. Like well, first of all, I used to just get bored, and so I kind of
Yeah.
switch it up every other question. I'd be like, I gotta find some sort of way to make myself entertained during this. If you like do it as some sort of, I'm just not making a decision. Like if you're gonna do that automatically no matter what, and you're not like pausing to make a decision about whether you read the answer choices in reverse order, cool, go for it. But honestly, I don't think there's really any main benefit. I'm still gonna make myself go through the answer choices. A lot of people will think that, like, especially for these harder questions, it's a lot more likely for the answer to be E or D. But like sometimes not. You never know.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
the I those yeah, going like backwards to forward, front, or things like that. I don't know. It's
Kind
what
of
you
like
want to do, right? Like I
right.
feel like that's
Personal
it's kind of like
preference.
yeah, it's all preference out there.
Yeah.
Wait, 26. What's your take from doing 26 to 21? Because those are always the hardest. Kind of the same
Oh,
thing.
like
It's like doing the hardest ones first and then going backwards. I mean, if you want to do that, you can. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference ultimately.
right. And I feel like that's the kind of stuff that I was kind of messing around with for my first. So I took the test 4 times. My first 3 tests, I just did not know what I was doing fully. And so I also was always signing up for the test before I was actually ready for the test. And I'd be like, shit, test day is coming. Like, what do I do? And then I would be panic cramming, trying to find new strategies that would all of a sudden magically get me a better score. And the thing is that if you try one of those strategies, like the first time you try it is test day, please don't do that. That is
Whoa.
going to not be helpful. I did that.
It's a
I did
rookie
that.
move.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Rookie mistake. Yeah,
Yeah.
not ideal. And so, like, if you want to try something like that and you've tried it, lots of different sections, and you know that it works best for you for some reason, great, perfect. But if this is like a new idea that you want to implement on your test that's coming up, nah, I probably would not. And yeah, at the end of the day, we just got this note. The ultimate strategy for a better score on the LSAT is just answer more questions correctly. Literally,
Yeah.
exactly. So, like, I get it. We probably have these ideas of like these other strategies that might hack the test for us and make it easier to get more questions right. But honestly, I can do the same thing that you're describing from like making sure that you're doing the harder questions first by saving myself enough time for those harder questions, which a really good hack for that is just focus on getting the first 15 questions in any given LR section done in about 15 minutes, like a minute a question on average, so that you can save yourself 2 minutes on average for each of the relatively more difficult questions in the last 10.
Yeah. That was a huge game personally. That was a big game changer for my own score, I think, was
Right.
going a little quicker through the first 15. Uh,
Same. And then, oh yeah, wait, I'm signing up for the test before I'm ready. No, that happens. It happens to the best of us. I'll tell you right now that if you have not consistently been practice testing in the range that you want to be, chances are a miracle is not going to happen on test day. Hate to break it to
yeah.
you. I really wanted a miracle to happen on 3 out of my 4 test days. It did not happen. I did not magically outscore myself from my past PTs. This is just not that kind of test, I will warn. But stick to it. Like, if this isn't your last test and you're committed to getting a higher score, please don't give up. Like, I'm so glad I didn't give up.
Yeah, when you're a heathen like me, you don't get any miracles, right? So
Yeah,
the
same.
yeah
Like they don't give miracles to people like us.
yeah exactly. It's only for good people. Okay,
Oh, yay.
let's should we
Sorry,
keep
I
on
was just
going here?
responding to the chat.
Oh
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Wait, are the harder questions still in the middle of the section? So I don't know where we got this. In general, as the LR section increases, it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio of it. It keeps increasing exactly by 1% or something every time. But it's like as the question gets throughout, or as the section goes on, usually the last 10 or 11 questions are a little bit harder in general.
Okay, cool. All right,
Okay.
let's keep on going. So this is which of the following, if true, most strongly supports the researcher's hypothesis. So strengthening question here. Uh, Interesting because it says most strongly supported, so you might be inclined to think that this is something like a most strongly supported question. But always ask yourself like, what are they saying is supporting what? Right. In this case, they're saying which of these answer choices supports the stimulus. They're not saying which of the following is most strongly supported by the stimulus. And so that's how I know that I'm trying to strengthen this argument. This is because the native salmon in Clearwater Lake Clearwater. I said Clearwater Lake. I don't know what I'm doing here. I've got dyslexia. Lake Clearwater had nearly disappeared. Sockeye salmon were introduced in 1940. Okay, interesting. After being introduced, the genetically uniform group of sockeyes split into two distinct populations that do not interbreed. Huh. One inhabiting the deep areas of the lake and the other inhabiting the shallow areas. Since the two populations now differ genetically, some researchers hypothesize that each has adapted genetically to its distinct habitat. Okay, so this is a phenomenon hypothesis question. Uh, their hypothesis is that these fish are genetically adapted to their habitat. And the reason why they believe this is they think that it explains the fact that the shallow salmon differ genetically from the deep salmon, right? They're noticing the genetic differences and they're coming up with an explanation for it. What's their explanation? Oh, it must be that this is some sort of Darwin thing. Now, it's a little bit counterintuitive Darwin thing. I don't know, right?
I love that. No, that's true. That's
It's
literally what my brain thinks too. I'm like, that's Bailey
Darwin's
speak.
going on
Good
here.
work.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when you look at this, it's a little bit. This is one of these things that's like a little bit counterintuitive because when I see this problem, I'm immediately thinking of alternative explanations and eliminating. The reason why is that when you see this structure, what you want to be thinking here is, well, there's other things that could explain this. And so, a good way to strengthen our explanation, the idea that it's a Darwin thing, is to eliminate alternatives. So, for example, right, you notice something I was saying in class. It's like you notice that your friend is drunk, and you conclude that they must have drank beer, right? And the reason why you're drawing this conclusion is that you think, well, that would obviously explain why your friend is drunk. But if you were to find out that your friend was drinking vodka all day, you'd say, well, I'm less likely to think that my friend is drunk because of the beer, right? The vodka would explain it. And so a good way to strengthen this argument would be to say, like, my friend did not drink vodka, right? If we eliminate an alternative explanation, the idea that beer explains the drunkenness gets a lot better. And so if we can eliminate an alternative explanation for why the salmon have different genes, then our argument is going to get a lot better. So that's what I'm going to hunt for here. Let's take a look at A. Neither of the two populations of the sockeyes has interbred with the native salmon. I'm looking at this. I'm thinking this is a pretty juicy answer choice right away. And the reason why
No,
is let's
you
no,
can't keep calling these answer choices juicy.
no,
Sorry, keep going.
that's just
It's
what we call. I
funny.
mean, it is right. This is a great answer choice, and the reason why is let's imagine that one of the populations of the sockeye did interbreed with the salmon, right? If one of them did, then that could totally explain why they have different genes, right? The shallow salmon mated with the native salmon, and so they're genetically different now than the deep water salmon. And so what A is doing is it's eliminating that, the idea of the interbreeding and saying, "Well, okay, look, there was no interbreeding between the native salmon and any of the populations. So why are they genetically different? Oh, it must be that they've adapted." And so something like A, I would feel pretty comfortable picking this, but that's only because I know about this phenomenon hypothesis structure and I'm used to it. If you are not used to phenomenon hypothesis structure or you haven't seen a ton of questions and you think in this way, you would definitely want to keep on going here. But if you ever see phenomenon hypothesis structure in something that eliminates an alternative explanation, that's a great thing to pick in a strengthening. Conversely, in a weakening, if you see an alternative explanation, that's a great thing to pick too. But let's keep on going here. Let's take a look at B. When the native salmon in Clearwater Clearwater Lake, I'll just call it Clearwater Lake for now, in Clearwater Lake were numerous, they comprised two different populations that did not interbreed. This is talking about the native salmon, not the newly introduced salmon. So, like, when I look at this, it's hard to really know what to do with this. I mean, did they have different genetics? I mean, maybe that would strengthen the argument a little bit, but by talking about how another type of salmon had different genetics and they didn't interbreed. But as far as I know, it just seems irrelevant to me. See, most types of salmon that inhabit lakes spend part of the time in shallow water and part in the deeper water. I mean, when we look at this, maybe that's true of most types of salmon. This would seemingly be bad for the author, right? If they're moving around. But when I look at this, I mean, we know that there's two distinct populations, so that's why I'm just going to eliminate something like C. It seems irrelevant. Deep, one of the populations of sockeyes is virtually identical genetically to the sockeyes originally introduced in 1940. Okay. Again, this is like one of these answers where I say, like, so what? Right. So one of the popular sockeyes is virtually identical genetically, and the other one isn't. So I mean, I guess it could still mean that they've done this Darwin thing, or they haven't. Again, I'm trying to like stretch to make D to work, but just because one of them is still identical genetically, maybe the other one is different, has different genes for some other reason. It's not like a genetic adaptation. I don't know. There could be a variety of reasons why. E says the total number of sockeye salmon in the lake is not as large as the number of native salmon had been many years ago. Size of the population is irrelevant here. So that's why I'd eliminate something like E. Definitely a tough question. I mean, when you look at this, this is made so much easier if you know or see the structure of phenomena hypothesis. If you don't see the structure of phenomena hypothesis, I think, I don't know, maybe it's like maybe I'd pick something not I would, but like I could see maybe something like
Yeah.
D potentially being attractive just because it's kind of like hard to know exactly what it's talking about the genes, but it's hard to know exactly what it's doing.
Right.
But yeah, anything to add there?
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you guys are looking for ways to just speed up at the test, unfortunately, there's not too many like ways to cut corners. You can't just like do too many, quick little hacks, but big picture, how do you speed up? You do enough of these questions, you can start to be familiar with these archetypes of how they like to phrase a question, like weaken questions, strengthen questions. We were talking about adding or eliminating alternative explanations. And yeah, by the way, your drunk beer vodka example is unhinged as usual, and it's good because I'm gonna remember it and I might steal it. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's relatable, right? Yeah.
So relatable. Can we
um,
explain structure again?
yeah.
Wait.
So phenomenon hypothesis structure is like
Oh
one
yeah.
of the most common structures on this test, especially when it comes to strengthening, weakening, and necessary assumption questions. Uh, when you have a phenomenon hypothesis, what ends up happening is you have some sort of observation, and then the conclusion is an explanation for that observation. And so you'd say, like, hey, look, right, my friend, like, I don't know, did not see. So conclusion, they must be blind, or like this person did not see, so conclusion, they must be, maybe I shouldn't say friend, we'll say Jerry did not see. I don't know, are there any Jerrys here? Jerry did not see, so he must be blind. And so when you look at this, you'd say, like, okay, the observation here is that Jerry did not see, and you'd say, well, what would explain this? Well, what would explain this is that Jerry is blind. But there's other explanations for why Jerry did not see. Maybe the lights are off. Maybe Jerry's wearing a blindfold. Maybe Jerry got flash banged. I don't know. Like, there's a number of reasons why someone might not see flash out, right? There's a number of
Sure.
reasons why someone might not see that doesn't have to do with someone being blind. And so when I see this in a strengthening question, I'd like to eliminate some of these alternative explanations. Uh, so I could say, like, hey, look, actually, the lighting was good in the room. And so that strengthens the idea that Jerry was blind. If I wanted to weaken this, I could say the lighting was bad in the room. That's so Jerry's not blind, but the lighting's just bad. And so when you see that type of structure, you can think of alternative explanations. That's usually the first thing I would jump to. Um, I hope that
Agreed.
explains. And now that's just one of many structures, right, on this test. And so getting used to seeing the variety of forms that this shows up. This shows up in studies too. Like study-based arguments, this happens a lot. I mean, especially when you see hypothesize, maybe they give away the game a little bit right there. But
Right. Okay, cool. Really good rundown. jot down that little structure so you have it in your back pocket, and you can always pull it out when you see these questions. It's so likely to come up on some sort of causal weakened strengthened question.
Cool.
Amazing. All
Bang.
right, let's keep going. Bang, bang. Yay. Okay. The statements above, if true, most strongly support which one of the following claims? Okay, similar question type to what I was doing before. So now instead of figuring out what must be true, essentially, or like what's properly inferred, we're just going one step down in terms of how justified or perfect this answer has to be. We're looking for something that's most strongly supported. So I think of this as a very similar approach where it's like, hey, if all of this stuff up top here is facts, no longer am I asking myself, what else do we know? I'm just like, what else do we have reason to believe? It's like, what can I point to support for in the stimulus? By the way, when in doubt here, if I'm stuck between two answer choices and they both seem pretty supported, and I'm like, I don't know which way to go, I'm going to lean towards something that has weaker wording, more open ended wording, like can, might, sometimes, maybe. That's just a lot easier to prove. It's a lot like lower threshold of proof that we would need to get to than something that's really strong, like this must happen, or always, or never, or most, or should. So just keep that in mind. That's another like kind of pattern of this test that you can put in your back pocket. So statements above, if true, most strongly support which one of the following claims? A developing country can substantially increase its economic growth if, okay, so there's conditional reasoning here. Like right away, I'm kind of clocking the strength of wording in the stimulus. I'm like, well, technically it could be strong wording as long as it follows like these conditionals. So if business people are willing to invest in modern industries that have not yet been pursued there. Okay. So if business people will invest in these new industries, then a developing country can substantially increase its economic growth. Got it. Let's just keep that in our brains, keep going. I'll come back and diagram if it feels like we need to chain this together with other conditionals. So if people are willing to invest in the modern industries, then developing country can increase its economic growth. But shift on part of the author, being the first to invest in an industry is very risky. Yep. So it's like, who's going to do it first? Somebody go take one for the team. Moreover, business people have little incentive to take this risk, since if the business succeeds, many other people will invest in the same industry. And the competition will cut into their profits. So it's like it's risky in the first place, and the incentive to take the risk is pretty low because, well, if people come in and they like get on the same train, then oh no, you're not going to be able to make as big of a cut of the profits. So it just looks like, hey, this thing that might help at a developing economy does not necessarily have that much incentive to be done. Like there might be some reasons why, hey, we might not see that this specific avenue of growth for a developing country. It's as loose of a pre-phrase as I'll make here. I'm just kind of like trying to recap the facts and then keep an open mind for what these answer choices are going to say. When in doubt, lean towards weaker, easier to support wording. So once a developing country has at least one business in a modern industry, I'm already hesitant on this one because I'm like, I don't really have any information from the stimulus to fill in whatever would finish that sentence, right? Like, as soon as we have at least one business, what's going to happen? I don't know. Let's see what they say. Further investment in that industry will not contribute. No. We never have reason to believe that it will not contribute to the country's economic growth. We just know that once one business invests and then more start investing, that's when the competition cuts into their profits, just the profits of the original investor, not at all the country's economic growth. Goodbye, A. B, in developing countries, there's greater competition within modern. Ooh, be very careful. This is what I call like a phantom comparison in these answer choices. When they're trying to compare two things that just, we don't even have a comparison up in the stimulus. Do we ever give anything of modern versus traditional? We talked about investing in modern, but I don't know anything about traditional. So we get rid of it right away. No idea. C, a developing country can increase its profits prospects for economic growth. Oh, okay, this is something that I didn't expect, but potentially by providing added incentive for investment in modern industries that have not yet been pursued there. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of these premises were just set up to be like, hey, there's little investment or little incentive to invest, but that really would help. And so, yeah, if we could provide added incentive, I think that's nice, weak supported wording. We can increase the prospects. It's not even saying that it will for sure grow economically. It's just like, hey, we'll have more chances for economic growth. Let's put a pin in it, see if I can get rid of these other ones. D, in developing country will not experience economic growth unless. Okay, so that's a conditional reasoning statement. Not A unless B. Quick hack for these, by the way. You just get rid of the not, get rid of the unless, read it straight across. It's like if I can't have A unless I have B, just think about what that means conceptually. No A unless B, so I never see A without B. A brings B along with it. A requires B. So it's literally just the same thing as saying, hey, if it will experience economic growth, if economic growth, then it must be that the business people business invest. Yeah, no, we don't know that. That's making up sufficient necessary. We said if people are willing to invest, then we can experience the growth. This is all of a sudden saying if we do experience the growth, then we must have people invest. No, that is going to be a classic trap answer. We're not going to fall for it. And then E, investments in a modern industry in a developing country carry little risk. I don't really know anything about carrying little risk as long as, so like if it carries little risk, then what do we know? The country must have at least one other business in the industry. Yeah, no, I have no idea what would get us to this point of carrying little risk. I know that right now there's like little incentive to take the risk. It's very risky. I have no idea any sort of factors that would lead to little risk. So we're going back. We're selecting C. Locking in.
Pop it and lock it. Rock it and lock it? No.
Pop it, lock it, polka dot it, countrify, then hip hop it.
Whoa.
Anybody?
Whoa.
You
Okay.
know that one?
Okay, Bandcamp. Good job,
Hey,
Cam.
it's Hannah Montana.
Oh, is that it?
We better have at least one listener who is on the same path as me, on the same wavelength. Come on. Okay, wait, let me see what you guys are saying in the chat.
Any tips on gaining confidence on outright eliminating answer choices? Whoa.
So I
Any
think a
tips,
lot of it
really?
just yeah, I think a lot of it is just like understanding the stimulus up front. Like, had I not invested the time that I did and really rephrasing that stimulus in my own words, kind of doing a little bit of a prephrase, like a restatement of the a restatement of what we just said. Like, had I not done all of that, I would have been a lot less confident going on these answer choices. So I think a lot of confidence just comes from the understanding up front, which I was talking about this in the chat, but we didn't say it out loud yet. If any part of you is thinking, hey, to increase my speed, I need to read faster. I'll tell you right now that that is just it makes sense. Probably it's kind of like an intuition that your brain wants to do that, but it's counterproductive. It is not going to have the effect that you want it to have. You read slower, you invest time in reading and understanding, and then you can make decisions faster. You fly through those answer choices. And like also ways to get more confident is just knowing those same little patterns, the same structures, the archetypes that you might see. Like I said, leaning towards weaker wording because it's easier to support, not just choosing an answer choice that's weakest worded, but lean towards it when in doubt and like take issue with those strong words in the stimulus or in the answer choices. That can help a lot as well. Any other tips, Henry?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. A lot of it is just practicing. Like, a a lot of it's just pattern recognition, right?
Right.
Recognizing, try eliminating things based off of one thing, right? Like that the fandom comparison bit that you gave was great, right? The second that they start talking about the traditional industries, it makes it a suspect answer. And so, next time you see that, obviously you won't see this question, but if you see another question that does that, try limiting and see if it works for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And then we kind of already addressed something similar to this, but just to come back to it, when y'all attempt a full LR section, are you answering questions chronologically or in reverse, like starting with the end? I personally, like, I played around with different ways of changing the sections up, but like, never did that actually get me to my goal score. Well, I think that both of us are on the same page of the best advice is that you're just distributing your time accordingly for how difficult the questions are on average. First 15 questions in an LR section on average are between like 1 to 3 star difficulty if you want to use a 7 stages difficulty system, which is just based on how many people are getting right or wrong in a full test. So in general, like objectively easier questions come in the beginning. Use your time accordingly, 15 minutes for the first 15 questions. And then you're saving yourself 20 minutes total for the last 10 or 11 questions, 2 minutes on average a question. That's what I do. That's what you do too, right, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, I just read it straight. That
Yeah.
was easiest for me just because easier questions tend to be up front, harder questions tend to be later, so I kind of know where I'm at. But I don't know. It's like again, right, just do what you're comfortable with.
Right,
It is
exactly. And like,
is the big
yeah, don't
thing.
let us tell you what to do. Figure out what works for you. But I would just say that like if you're thinking that that is going to be the hack that all of a sudden gets you the 170, the hack that gets you the 170 is going to be understanding and making sure that you can translate this stuff in your own words.
Yeah, and look, yeah, it's like so much of I think what Bailey and I have been referencing to is like these patterns that show up. If you can recognize them, one, you have to
Yes.
know that they're there, and then you practice recognizing them, even when the material's different. It, things get a lot easier. Okay, cool. Yeah, reading with a cadence. I should. Do you read with a cadence in your head? I actually don't read with a cadence in my head. Do you
Oh, in
read
my
with a
head,
cadence
I
in
gotta
your head?
make it just as well, I don't know. Hopefully, I make it interesting when I'm reading out loud. I gotta do this in my head. Like, if people are always asking, like, "What do you do for RC?" I'm like, "Gossip method." I read it like it's hot gossip. Like, I cannot
Mm.
just read these like monotonous, boring. Same for LR. I'm all of a sudden just locking in. All of a sudden, it's the most interesting thing I've ever read, even if it's really not. Like, it's kind of this placebo effect that I'm giving myself so I can pay attention. But yeah, what's going on in your head, Henry? Is it just like mer 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 mer? mer?
Maybe I pause at every sentence, but I
Oh
kind of
yeah,
just read it
same.
straight. Yeah, it's like typewriter. Ticka, 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 you know, developing country exponentially increases economic growth if businesses are willing to invest in modern. That's kind of like how it goes in my head. I don't know.
But yeah, I
Um,
definitely no, it's good that you mentioned that you're pausing because I think that the like what people don't realize is that high scorers really are pausing mid sentence, even if it's not like it gets to be more of a natural pause or it's like you're already translating your head while you're reading after you've done this a lot. But like we really are pausing and translating into our own words. Again, if you're thinking that you don't have the time to do that, that's just the wrong way of thinking about this test. Like you really want to invest your time up front in reading and understanding. You fly through those answer choices.
all right, should we do it up here?
Yep.
All right. Uh-oh. I literally just did this question in the free class. Oops.
That's okay.
Today. Is it okay? Maybe I mean I don't know. I could do the next one. All right, we'll just do. All right, I'll do it. That's the tease. Sorry, I'm gonna do the question, but just know
But we
that
already know
I
that
did.
Henry's prime for this one. So if his
I know.
explanation's
I literally
really
just did.
good.
So I'll give, but yeah, I would give my thinking if had I not just seen this. So this is an RE question. I just see the word explains, and so I instantly know it's an RE question. Every resolve, reconcile, and explain question uses one of those three words: resolve, reconcile, or explain. And so the second I see explain, I'm thinking, all right, there's a mystery here. I need to explain it. Paradox question, I'd say. Yeah, it's called paradox on other sites too. Pretty interchangeable though. So a survey of city concert goers found that almost all of them were dissatisfied with the local concert hall. A large majority of them expressed a strong preference for wider seats and better acoustics. Okay. And even though the survey respondents were told that the existing concert hall cannot be feasibly modified to provide these features, most of them opposed the idea of tearing down the existing structure and replacing it with a concert hall with wider seats and better acoustics. So, one of the ways I like to think of this is like there's a certain expectation you have versus reality. If it's true that these people really have this strong preference for wider seats and better acoustics, then I would expect that they would be pretty all right with tearing down the concert hall and building a new one. But it seems like they're not all right with that. And so what I need to do is I need to try to reconcile that or explain like how is it possible that they have this preference, but they're going against it. So we're going to look for an answer that reflects that idea, or not reflects that idea, but would seem to explain that away. A says before any of the survey questions were asked, the respondents were informed that the survey was sponsored by a group that advocates replacing the existing concert hall. When immediately you look at this, and you have to ask yourself, like, why would knowing that the person who's running the survey influence how you're responding here? I mean, I guess it kind of could, but it's weird because it seems like they're on the same side here, right? They want to replace the concert hall. These people seem to have this preference. So, like, unless these people have a bias against surveyors, which I mean, I guess you might have, this wouldn't really work as an explanation. So you'd eliminate something like A. B says most of the people who live in the vicinity of the concert hall do not want it to be torn down. I mean, I look at this and I'd say, one, this is talking about people who live in the vicinity of the concert hall. We're talking about concert goers here. Like, those are the people that we're really interested in explaining. And so when I look at this, I think, well, I mean, do concert goers live in the vicinity? I don't really know. So I'd probably strike something like B here. C says the city's construction industry will receive more economic benefit from constructing a new concert hall than from renovations to the existing concert hall. This almost makes things worse, right? Like, this is effectively what this is saying is that the construction industry is going to do better if you tear down the concert hall and rebuild than if you just renovated it. So, unless the concert goers hate construction workers for some reason, this would not work as an explanation. So, you'd eliminate something like C. D says a well-publicized plan is being considered by the city government that would convert the existing concert hall into a public auditorium and build a new concert hall nearby. This is the kind of thing where like it looks kind of irrelevant. I definitely wouldn't pick this up front because you see this and it's like, all right, I see how this could work, but I don't really know if the concert goers are totally aware of it. I mean, it does say it's a well publicized plan, but even then, they don't say that this new concert hall nearby has the wide seats, has the better acoustics. So I would leave this up, but this would not be like a pick and move situation for me. There's just a little bit too much storytelling to do for me to comfortably pick D and move. E says many popular singers and musicians who currently do not hold concerts in the city would begin to hold concerts there if a new concert hall were built. This just makes things worse, right? Like if we build a new one, then all of a sudden, did my pen die? I think no, my pen didn't die.
Nar. What
No,
mine keeps being weird too.
there,
I don't know
yeah,
if it's I think it's
the
just something
Miro's
weird about
weird,
Miro.
right? So E's out because this is just making things worse for our paradox or our mystery. This is one more reason to build a new concert hall. So something like D, you know, I'd hesitantly pick this. There's a little bit of storytelling we need to do to get it to work. I mean, one, we have to assume that more is better than less. That's not that terrible of an assumption. But then also, it's not clear that this new concert hall definitely has the better acoustics. But it's reasonable enough. It's the only thing that seems to help me, right? And that's what most helps. So D takes me in the right direction. Now, a lot of times I'd say that people kind of waffle between B and D. One, because maybe when they look at B, they don't see that this is talking about people who live in the vicinity versus the concert goers who might not live in the vicinity. The thing is that even if the concert goers did live in the vicinity, B is almost begging the question, right? Where it says, why don't they want we're trying to explain why don't they want the concert hall turned down? And this is saying because they don't want the concert hall turned down, right? But the question is why? Right? So even if they were living in the vicinity, it wouldn't be a very good explanation. So that's another reason why you could toss something like B. Um, but yeah, it's D.
Nice.
It's D. I mean, sorry, I've seen
Damn,
this
I'm
before.
angry because I was going to try to gaslight you into thinking that you got it wrong. And unfortunately, you had way too good of an explanation for all of these other answer choices that there wasn't even one that I could try to gaslight you on. So
Yeah, well, I'm well practiced here.
foiled
I just
again.
just just
Foiled
just
again.
just took a look at it. This is a tough one though. I mean, it
It's so
really
annoying.
is.
Yeah, I remember this one. I'm just like, like I wouldn't have pre-phrased something like D, but it's like, well, it totally works. And again, like if you don't think it's perfect, we're just trying to figure out what most helps to explain. It's not going to be a perfect answer.
Yeah, but I think too, it's like definitely take this one to be uh, closer to. I don't want to say
Oh
an
yeah.
exception, but like kind of like an exception here. Where normally an answer choice would probably say like, and this new concert hall has better acoustics, et cetera, just to make it a little bit more sweet. But yeah, it's something you're gonna have these not judgment calls, but you're gonna have to make these close calls sometimes.
Right. Agreed.
Do we have
Okay,
time for
cool. This is
another?
actually weirdly good timing. No, I think
Yeah,
we have like a perfect amount of time for another one. I did not think this was going to be exactly 2 hours. This is good.
but here we are. I know.
But here we are. All right. Last question. Let's go. Okay. Yeah. Wait. It's so funny because like I got like a ton of flaw questions, a couple most strongly supported or inference questions. You got those method of reasoning. Like, why did it work out like this? I don't know.
I don't know. It's crazy.
Anyways, like this is something that we would probably type as a most strongly supported, fill in the blank sort of answer or argument. Wait, what am I trying to say here? Question type, question stem, which of the following most logically completes the argument. These are kind of nice because like you really don't have to read into it too much. It's just they put a blank here and you're like, what would fill that blank? Now, just remind yourself this thing has to receive support from the stimulus. It can't just be something brand new, out of left field, opening a whole new can of worms that then they would have to explain later on. We're looking for something that just follows based on this reasoning. And we'll definitely be able to read into this final premise right before what I think is supposed to be the conclusion that we're filling in so that we can get some idea for where they're going with it. Okay, so student says, before completing my research paper, I want to find the book from which I copied a passage to quote in the paper. Okay, I want to find the book from which I copied a passage to quote in the paper. Got it. So, like, before I finish, I want to make sure that I can find this book. Why is that sentence so weird to read? Without the book, I will be unable to write an accurate citation. Okay, yeah. So, like, I already copied a passage to quote into the paper. I need to find the book so I can figure out, like, what the citation is. If I don't have the book, I cannot write an effective or an accurate citation. And without the accurate citation, I will be unable to include the quotation. Okay, there's some conditional reasoning here. Let's just go through it. So, like, if I don't have the book, then I can't write an accurate citation. So, if I can write an accurate citation, I must have the book. without an accurate citation, if I don't have an accurate citation, what? Accurate citation, no. Then I cannot include the quotation. So include quote, not going to happen. So we could chain all this together. We could be like, if I don't have the book, no way I have an accurate citation, which means no way I could include the quote. In other words, oh, it's buffering. If I do include the quote, well, I must have an accurate citation, which means I must have found that book. Okay, cool. Hence, since the completed paper will be much better with the quotation than without, I mean, looks like, you know, I must find the book, or I want to find the book to have a better paper. If I don't find the book, well, I'm not going to have a better paper. That's all that I'm kind of predicting here. Let's see where these answer choices go. A, I will, whoa, wait. Since the completed paper will be much better with the quotation than without, I will have to include an inaccurate citation. What? No, we don't even have an option to include an inaccurate citation, right? We just said if I can't have an accurate citation, I will be unable to include the quote. So there's not even a possibility here. I can't possibly include the accurate citation, not based on, or inaccurate citation, not based on these rules. B, okay, I'm going to keep reading into it with the since the completed paper will be much better with the quote than without, I will be unable to complete my research paper. What? No, we're not talking about like not even be able to finish the paper. It's like I might still be able to finish the paper. It just won't be as good if I don't have the book. We don't even know that I don't have the book. Okay. C, since the completed paper will be much better with the quote than without, if I don't find the book, well, yeah, my research paper will suffer because if I don't find the book, that means I can't include the quote. And we just said that the completed paper will be better with the quote than without. Yeah, C is great. I would lock in on it. D, if I do not find the book, okay, similar, but let's see what's different. I will include the quotation. No, without an accurate citation. We just said that if I don't have an accurate citation, I cannot include the quote. So that goes against the rules, getting rid of that. And then E, if I do not find the book, I will be unable to complete my paper. Again, we're not talking about unable to complete the paper. If I don't find the book, I can't include the quote. My paper still is existing. It's just shittier. We don't know that we're unable to complete it. Goodbye. Gotta be C. Not too
Nice.
bad of a final question for that. I feel like
Not
that's
too
not
shabby.
quite as crazy. Not
I feel
too
like
shabby.
the last question's usually like a little bit. It's not easy, but it's like a little bit easier than I feel like the last like
Right. And
the
sometimes
the
that happens,
preceding
right? Like I feel
4,
like
yeah.
sometimes people are like, the hardest question is always the last one. It's like, no, you don't know that. It's just in general, last 10-ish questions are a little bit harder.
Nice. Yeah. Well, what a blast this was, really.
Really fun. I have no better way to spend my Thursday nights than on
Really?
no, I do. But this was
Really?
really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
No. I can think of so many better Thursday nights, but this one was really special with all of you guys. And hopefully we got some good takeaways. And hopefully, dare I say, we might want to sign up for these classes. I don't
Whoa.
know.
Yeah.
Who said that? I didn't say it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Someone in the chat. Oh,
Someone in the chat
I mean,
said
we'd be
that.
honored.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Any last thoughts for us, you guys, before we log off here?
Nice work on the PAT.
No, honestly, if you got like 3 wrong here, that probably coincides with a 171, right? Like you can miss a handful of questions to get a
Yeah.
low 170 score.
Yeah. You can. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I guess depending on the curve. Yeah. It's like 3
Because
each
yeah,
section.
like 171 could be like -8, -7. So like, yeah, you can miss a few in a section.
TY for the
Yay.
help. Sometimes it feels like you will never get better. Now it does get better.
That's how I felt though, for the longest time. And I had other friends even that like I knew were studying for the LSAT, but I was so in my head and so like anxious and just I don't know, I thought that I was just doing worse than everybody else that I refused to even share any part of my journey with other people. And then I was like, no, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But as soon as I started talking to other people and I was like, oh wait, so everyone's struggling? Cool. So I'm normal. There's not something wrong with me. This is true for you guys too.
Night is always darkest before the dawn, you know?
Good
Right?
one.
Yeah.
No, that's not similar to the grass is always greener on the other side, is it?
Well, okay, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking the tunnel, right? The
I see.
darkest
I see.
part
The
of
light
the
at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, we're getting lost in our metaphors here. No, you're
Yeah.
totally right.
It's darkest in the middle of the tunnel, and then you're on your way out,
Right.
right? Yeah, I don't know.
Aw, yay. Okay, yes. Good luck for everybody taking the test this week. You guys got this. Remind yourself this is not a crammable test. If you're trying to like get big breakthroughs in your studying right now, that's not your goal. Your goal is to cement your confidence. Fake it till you make it. You're going to make it. Is applying in January bad?
Do the hearts.
That's a loaded question. Not necessarily. Should we just end this with a heart?
Mhm.
It really depends what schools you're trying to apply to, but also we are not admissions professionals. We do not give official admissions advice, but we have lots of admissions people that do. In fact, we just did an admissions live stream, I'm pretty sure, and we'll likely do another one.
Oh, you got to do it. Now, when at this time of the year,
You have to at this time of the year. Plus, yeah, admissions applications are crazy this year. It's so competitive.
yeah, I'd be really worried if I didn't have admissions help from 7th stage. Wow. What? No. Uh,
Who said that?
yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this has been what a joy. And we'll see you guys around.
Don't
Is
be
that how we do this?
strangers. Come to our
Yeah.
class.